Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Become a Superman and Become Invincible. Chapter 41. Half a month passed quickly. Nick Fury said he would come again, but in the end he never came again. I heard from Tony that he packaged the Hydra information and sent it to Hey Ludan's mailbox. It is estimated that the other party is now facing his own shield, which is riddled with holes, and scolds kill 100 times a day. But during this time, Natasha had already led the girls to relieve the control of more than 200 widow agents. Most of these widows were willing to join the organization that Leon had not yet established. There are less than double digits of widow agents. Either because they were exhausted physically or mentally, or because they wanted to pursue their own future, they chose to quit. Leon also destroyed the files of these people as promised. However, maybe within a few years, some of them will regret the decisions they made today. Tony, because of Pepper's request, also began to return to the company to help. After all, the spread of new energy cannot be achieved without him. Leon's biggest gain in the past half-month is the growth in strength and the end of the upper limit prediction experiment. 2 days ago, Leon went home after basking in the sun and ended the thrust test. Tony looked at him again as if he were a monster. A huge force of 890,000 tons. In half a month, your strength has almost doubled. Leon nodded calmly. I can feel that the growth rate of strength is accelerating, a bit like growing in a geometric sequence. But in the past 2 days, I have noticed that this growing gap has begun to narrow. Perhaps this means that I am approaching the peak of my growth. So what I would rather get is the upper limit prediction result. Today is the last day, right? It's time to get the results, give me 5 minutes. Tony walked to the computer and started calculating quickly on the screen. As he said, 5 minutes later, a prediction chart full of points and lines was printed. Okay, done. Leon pulled out the drawings and read them carefully. Tony acted as the narrator. Those dots record the power of your jump after each end of the sun, and the lines are the increase. According to the model we built, your upper limit of strength will be around 2 million tons. Well, it's 2 million tons with a single arm. Tony looked at Leon's face and continued after finding nothing unusual. And 1 million tons is your peak period. Before the peak period, the strength will increase faster and faster like a snowball. After that, your strength growth rate will gradually slow down until it reaches the upper limit. After Tony finished speaking, he carefully observed Leon. He knew that his younger brother had always wanted to pursue power, and he might not be in a good mood when he suddenly heard that he had an upper limit. However, Leon was always calm. He even felt strange. What's that expression on your face? It's like you were afraid that I would cry the next second, so you took out tissues in advance to comfort me. Don't you feel sad about the fact that you have an upper limit? Tony asked, pointing to the prediction chart. Why should I be sad? This is expected. After knowing the result, I have a direction to work hard. Leon said. That's just the way it is. I know that about 2 million tons per arm is my upper limit. Before reaching the upper limit, he can continue to bask in the sun while looking for other ways to become stronger. First of all, you can consider going to Kamatage to study. You can also go to Deluo village in Kunlun to learn Qigong. There are too many crooked ways to become stronger in Kamatage. For example, using the contract signed with the devil to become stronger. Sign the weak ones first, and then they will devour the opponent, then sign the stronger ones, and climb all the way to the path of the devil. This is a feasible road that has already been trodden by a certain Doctor Strange. Kunlun can seek the power of the dragon. That is multi-level power, although the probability of getting it is very small. Even after exploring these powers in this world, he can also use the ability to travel to other worlds to find ways to become stronger. In the past, Leon had always been a little cautious, feeling that it was best not to step out of the current world before he became strong enough. However, now he should be barely qualified to set foot in other worlds. Tony said at this time. Speaking of which, I watched a Superman cartoon a few days ago. The Superman inside suddenly absorbed too much power, reaching a huge force of 200 billion tons, and his body began to collapse naturally. I think that for most ordinary Kryptonians, 2 million tons may already be an unattainable limit. Leon thought for a while and agreed. Maybe it's true. After all, there is an upper limit to race. So if you want to break through this upper limit, do you have to stop being a Kryptonian? He complained secretly in his mind. 2 days later. End of a sumptuous dinner. Tony continued to retreat into the laboratory to conduct research. Leon flew into space. After the simulation test, he basically felt like he was rooted in the space capsule these days. Except when I'm hungry, I go home for dinner. Even yesterday Natasha's request for salary was ignored by him. Enter the space capsule again and return to the familiar titanium alloy steel plate. Leon soon fell into sleep comfortably. This night. It should have been spent peacefully like this. But uninvited guests always arrive without warning. Tony Stark didn't know. The wind that announced his identity to the world has now blown into the hidden corner. The moon and stars are sparse, and the sky is filled with floating clouds. Under the night, a group of black-clothed and masked men were hidden in the shadow of the clouds, attacking the Stark mansion like a rat woman coming out of a hole. They were like some kind of ancient knights, with the only eyes they showed being firm and ruthless. It seems that they are here just to rob the rich and give to the poor. But it's like a ninja that has been passed down for thousands of years. Each person's footsteps will be imprinted on the footsteps of the person before him. No one made any sound, everyone was like a cold sword hidden in a sheath. They walk in the blind spot of all surveillance equipment. Sometimes they jump together, sometimes they crawl, like a group of water spiders jumping on the water. The group of water spiders finally lurked on the roof of the Stark mansion, located the location of Tony's room, and landed with a hook lock. Laser cutter, glass suction cup, silent gloves. They were extremely professional in removing the glass from Tony's bedroom. Then one after another they slid into the house like swimming fish, without making any sound. The person in the lead looked around the room and shook his head, indicating that Tony Stark was not here. He made a few hand gestures, instructing everyone to rush out together and kill them downstairs, leaving no one alive. Everyone nodded. The leader raised 5 fingers and started counting down one by one. At the same time in the laboratory, Tony was leaning on the soft chair with his chin propped up in deep thought. On the screen in front of him was Jarvis' defense system. He was so busy during this period that half a month had passed and Jarvis's upgrade had not been completed. Talk about it. During the upgrade, he also deliberately replaced the monitoring equipment, and there were gaps in the original all-round monitoring. However, the upgrade time is very fast, so there will definitely be no problems. However, an arm was stretched out in front of him and waved. I'm still thinking about it, Tony, the enemies are coming. Leon reached out and took off the glasses from Tony's face. He was asleep in space when he heard the sound of glass cutting and the sound of heavy footsteps in his home. The sweet dream was suddenly awakened. As soon as his supervision was turned on and he saw the situation clearly, he hurried back to the laboratory in 5 seconds. The improvement in strength during this period has caused the strength of the biological force field to increase rapidly. Now, even if he flies at speeds above Mach 100, he can still fly through the clouds as silently as a bird. Huh, Tony was startled, his face full of shock, but he stopped after seeing Leon. What enemy? Jarvis didn't even warn. It's not that black braised egg again, is it? From Leon, Tony learned the adjective for black braised eggs, which combines both taste and color. No, it's a group of ninjas, or martial arts masters. Leon pinched his wrist. I came back to remind you to upgrade Jarvis quickly, and then take action to deal with them. Oh, no, no, no. When Tony heard that Leon was about to take action, his heart jumped and he stood up immediately. They are obviously coming for me. If they want to take action, I will do it. After he finished speaking, he waved his hand directly. Jarvis, armor. The flight capsule standing quietly in the laboratory suddenly disintegrated and attached. Leon didn't stop Tony. The muscle density of the dozen or so people above is at the level of ordinary people. Even if he might have some mysterious power, he would not be Tony's opponent. After Tony put on the armor, he smashed the glass door and rushed upstairs. You wait for my news below. Tony's voice also rushed all the way down the corridor. Handsome guys with diapers on their heads, here I come. It can be seen that he has been too busy and depressed during this period, and his true nature is immediately revealed when he puts on the armor. Leon shook his head and stepped upstairs on the broken glass. The uninvited guests obviously did not expect that the target would suddenly rush out from downstairs. As soon as Tony went up, he opened up all fire, and the cluster cannon rotated and bombed. The intruders were killed without any chance of fighting back. Even those who reacted were knocked to the ground by cluster cannons the moment they resisted. Tony's full power output caused the ceiling of the villa to rumble and shake. When Leon walked to the living room, the body was already lying on the floor and the wall was half cracked. Very good, you can call the decoration company again tomorrow. The last man in black was cornered by Tony. It was obvious that these attackers were professional killers. Not one of them screamed when they died. Even if only one person dies now, will he still fight to the end? Leon just thought that the last person would make a last stand. As a result, the man stepped back and took out a simple envelope from his arms. He handed over the envelope and at the same time swung the knife in his hand, cut his own throat and died on the spot. When his body fell, he even kept handing out the envelope. Well, it seems like he doesn't intend to fight to the death, but chooses to die to prove his ambition. Leon walked to Tony's side. No, he wanted me to read the letter. Click. Tony flipped up his visor, and the armor separated automatically. He took a step forward and was about to pick up the envelope, but Leon got there first. Be careful with the poison on the letter, Tony. Next time you come into contact with something given by the enemy, you'd better wear battle armor. Tony was stunned for a moment. Smear poison on the letter. Who else would do such an insidious thing? Some Eastern martial arts novels like to write this kind of plot. These people are sneaky and they look like they would do that kind of thing. Leon put the envelope to his nose and smelled it. Okay, it's not poisonous. It seems I'm overthinking it. But why did he hand over this letter before committing suicide? He opened the envelope casually. Maybe some organization wants to win over me. Could it be that it was a membership test? Tony came over to watch together. Leon looked disgusted. What kind of middle school student's guess is this? Do you think you are the savior? He unfolded the letter. From the outside, it looks like a very ordinary letter, probably made of bamboo paper. People who are accustomed to using this kind of paper are basically from Southeast Asia. Could it be that the other party is the hand? The two of them read the letter line by line. To Mr. Tony Stark, congratulations on passing my test. Killed the members of the Outer 10 Rings gang who went on an assassination mission. Successfully proved that you are worthy of having your head cut off by me. In recent years, you are still the first person to reach this stage. First introduce yourself. I am the leader of the 10 Rings gang, Wen Wu. The 10 Commandments gang that you wiped out half a month ago was just a poor imitator of mine. I want to thank you for killing these shoddy imposters for me. But I'm sorry to inform you. Although they are just imitators, they also represent the prestige of the 10 Rings gang in the world. Now that you have claimed to the outside world that you have wiped out the 10 Commandments gang, then I have to kill you to maintain the reputation of my 10 Rings gang. 1 month later, I will come to your door in person to take your head. Signature. Wenwu. Quote. The two of them quickly finished reading silently. Tony frowned. So, the 10 Rings gang is just the tip of the iceberg. No, the 10 Rings gang is actually a hidden organization. He thought of Hydra and the Red Room. Any such organization hidden in the dark corners of the world. What he has learned so far is nothing good. Tony was still speculating on the details of the 10 Rings gang, but Leon next to him exploded. What a civil and military man. Leon's eyes almost immediately glowed red. The letter in his hand shattered without warning. He floated, and the skirt of his clothes did not move in the wind. The red light in his eyes grew stronger and stronger, like a demon crawling out of hell staring at all living beings. He was clearly not wearing a Superman uniform, but at this moment, it seemed as if a blood-stained cape was making a sound behind him. Tony, you can rest first. I'll go kill a few people and then come back. His face was expressionless. It was as if he was just saying that he would eat a piece of bread later. But Senon's tone can make people's hair stand on end. Tony turned his head in surprise. Before he could see Leon, he suddenly felt like a big mountain was pressing on him and took a few steps back. You mean now? Tony looked at Leon, his heart trembling slightly. Oh, if the Shawan gang dares to issue a death notice after 1 month, I will prevent them from seeing the sun tomorrow. Leon just floated there. It gives people a sense of oppression, like mountains flying in the sky and rivers flowing backward. It seemed as if the whole world would collapse in the next moment, like a mirror falling to the ground. This was the first time Tony had seen such an angry Leon. His throat was tight and he felt flustered for some reason. "Leon, calm down, Tony said hurriedly. "He is looking for me, and it is me who should deal with him. Don't be impulsive. Let's talk about it later." He jumped up and tried to drag Leon down, but Leon didn't move at all, and he fell on Leon instead. He hugged Leon's calf and smiled sarcastically. "Listen, Leon, let's not rush to take action yet. Look, it was me, Iron Man, who issued the challenge. I must respond to this challenge. Otherwise, why did I hold that press conference before? Was it just to show off?" Leon looked at Tony hanging on his calf speechlessly. "The anger in my heart was extinguished a lot because of this funny comparison. Isn't it?" He slowly landed, and Tony stood on the ground again. "Look, you always misunderstand me so deeply." Tony stepped forward and immediately stepped forward to block Leon's shoulders. "I am Iron Man, this is my responsibility. You also know what I wanted to do from the beginning, right? This is an opportunity," he said eloquently. "The Ten Rings Gang, just like the Ten Rings Gang, is not a good thing. They provoked me, and I just wanted to find them. None of these dancers hiding in the dark are good people, so let me investigate and deal with them, okay?" "Are you serious?" The red light in Leon's eyes gradually extinguished and turned back to black eyes. He looked at Tony strangely. "Do you really want to fight with that civil and military man? Don't look at me like that. You've already solved the Red House, but I can't solve the Ten Rings Gang." "Am I kidding?" Tony smiled and spread his hands, feeling relieved in his heart. For some reason, seeing Leon's furious look made him feel tight. This reminded him of himself 17 years ago, holding Leon and squatting in front of his parents' tombstones, crying. That day, the rain in the whole world flowed like a silver waterfall curtain, and he couldn't tell whether it was tears or rain on his face. "I couldn't tell whether I was angry, sad, or confused." He cried until his eyes blurred. Suddenly, Leon in his arms was babbling, and he stretched out his hand to wipe away the water stains on his face. Leon, who was still a baby at that time, seemed to have concern in his big black eyes, and his young hands patted his cheek again and again. At that moment Tony knew that this child was his only remaining relative in the world. He swore that he would never let anything happen to Leon. This little guy must be smiling and active every day. Over the past 17 years, he has fulfilled this vow perfectly. But now Leon has grown up and even turned into Superman, and even started to protect him in turn. While this made Tony very uncomfortable, he also had to admit that he could no longer protect Leon. But when he saw Leon's furious look, his heart still felt tense. That's a vague sense of self-blame. He blames himself for being too weak and can no longer protect his younger brother. Leon didn't know Tony's rich psychological activities. He glanced at the arc reactor on Tony's chest and shook his head. "You can't beat him," based on the civil and military performance in the movie. After all, Tony has to be in the late stages to be able to fight. As for Tony, who is still using the palladium arc reactor. "Sorry, too weak. You haven't even seen me take action and you think I can't beat him?" Tony glared. "It's like you know him very well." Leon picked up the two bodies on the ground and walked out. "I do know something. The Ten Rings Gang is an organization that has been passed down for thousands of years. It is named after the leader's treasure, the Ten Rings. The Ten Rings have amazing power and can give the user a long life and a super strong body. It is said that it also has special energy that can open dimensions. That civil and military man obtained the 10 rings 1,000 years ago and is still alive today. How can you win against such a person? The 10 rings in the movie have the same names as the 10 rings in the comics. But they are two weapons with completely different abilities. The 10 rings are weapons of the mind energy system that can absorb and store kinetic energy. In the movie, this set of weapons displays different powers in the hands of different people. Related settings were later added to the comics. It is said that the 10 rings were originally the divine weapons of the Jade Emperor, but were left behind in the human world. As long as it's in the right hands, The upper limit of its power is even close to the level of a single universe, comparable to the infinite gems. As for the origin of the 10 rings in the movie, Leon has no idea. After all, the strength shown by the two people who had used the 10 rings throughout the whole process seemed to be difficult even to destroy a city. Compared with the description in the comics, it is almost 10 galaxies away. Of course, even so, the civil and military skills are not what Tony can match now. Are you sure you're not talking about fairy tales? People who have lived for thousands of years. Can they still open dimensions? Tony subconsciously questioned, but Leon's expression told him that it was not a joke. Okay, I know that's true, thank you for your answer, Leon Encyclopedia. Tony also put on the armor and began to carry the bodies with Leon. Let me think about it. An organization with a 1,000-year history, and an old man who is a living fossil. It's really unheard of. But this matter still has to be resolved by myself, Leon. If the other party is coming for me, then I will face him. Leon threw the body on the lawn and asked, how do you solve it? Just because of the poisonous arc reactor on the chest. After that, he went back to the house and continued to move the next batch of corpses. Tony followed. Don't say that, let me try. If it doesn't work, you can go up again. With you as a Superman, can I still have an accident? But, did you know that palladium can poison people? Tony was a little surprised. Leon silently picked up 2 more people. I studied chemistry in high school, thank you. He took 2 steps and suddenly stopped. If you really want to take action, then upgrade your armor first and heal the hole in your chest. Besides, I've always wanted to ask, why are you always carrying the reactor with you even though there's no shrapnel in your chest? Are you trying to be cool with your life? Tony was a little embarrassed. There are some deep reasons for this. What kind of guilty expression do you have? Leon asked suspiciously. Don't tell me, you actually forgot that palladium can poison people. Are you kidding? How could I forget such a thing? Tony's face was stern. I'm just testing the impact of palladium on the human body, yes, that's it. Leon covered his forehead. You guys are hopeless. I thought you had other plans, so I never asked. I didn't expect you to have never considered this issue. A week ago, Tony was holding the arc reactor on his chest, flaunting it everywhere like an Astro Boy. Until he came out of the lab last weekend. The big hole on the chest was finally replaced with other fillings. It seems that it was the physical discomfort at that time that reminded him of palladium poisoning. That's all over. Tony threw the 2 bodies on the ground and changed the subject loudly. Children only always think about the past. We should think about how to improve the armor now. Tony wanted to put his hand on Leon's shoulder, but was dodged. He clapped his hands instead to cover up his embarrassment. Since you said I can't beat that civil and military man, how about you help me develop the armor? In the next month, we brothers will study together and we will definitely make history. Leon, you don't want me to be bullied by people outside, right? Leon raised his eyebrows. Oh, there is such a good thing. I have been waiting for you to be beaten for a long time. He refused. It is impossible to study together. I have to go to the universe to become stronger. But a few days ago, I used my supervision to check the files left by my father in S.H.I.E.L.D. It was discovered that he had developed a new element suitable for the arc generator a long time ago. The clues are on the design display board in Stark Industrial Park, you can go and take a look. Leon chose to reveal the new elements to Tony in advance. At the same time he piled all the bodies together. Burn them all to ashes with heat rays. He blew out another breath and blew all the dust out of the villa. Dad, Tony on the other side took off his armor. He has developed a new element. Are you kidding me? It's not a joke, that's the last gift he left for you. Leon patted Tony's arm and walked into the house. Afterwards, you can ask Nick Fury for the documents that Dad left behind. Everything he wants to tell you is in them. Leon temporarily gave up the idea of going directly to the Ten Ring Gang headquarters to crush Wen Wu's head. Since Tony wants to kill, let him kill. When you really can't beat it, you can take over the baton yourself. After all, strictly speaking, this matter is indeed a personal grudge between the Ten Rings Gang and Tony. Tony stayed there for a while. He probably didn't expect to receive a gift from Howard after so long. After standing there for several minutes, He entered the house and found Leon. So, you agreed, right? I will solve the problem of the 10 Rings gang by myself. Tony was still thinking about the fight. It's up to you, but I still don't think highly of you. If you lose then, don't call Leon to save me. Leon was preparing to go to space again. You agree. That's great. I knew you would agree. You are worthy of being my brother. Tony cheered. He didn't take Leon's sarcasm to heart at all. Help? What help? Tony Stark, even if he jumped off the cliff behind his home, he would never call for help again. He said it. No one can change it. Leon saw through Tony's thoughts at a glance and sighed. This Tony is considered useless. Let's come back in exchange for different ones in the multiverse later. Error. Don't be too happy too early. I told you that you will definitely lose. Are you still happy? He used verbal attacks. We'll lose. That's not necessarily the case. As long as there are new elements, everything will be different. Tony waved his hand. It's a beautiful thought. Adding new elements to the Mark III is not enough, and the big hole in your chest is also a fatal flaw. Unless you can cure it, but we don't have that kind of medical technology now, well, it doesn't seem possible. Leon touched his chin and suddenly thought of something. Superb medical technology is not available on Earth, but it is available in the universe. The universe is too far away, and there are still other worlds. Leon suddenly felt a little moved. He just happened to have a plan to travel around the world recently. Because it was his first time traveling, he wanted to find a world with a low upper limit as a try. So, why not just travel to a world where Tony's chest injury can be cured and his strength can be improved without a high upper limit? Leon's eyes flickered, and he suddenly made plans to leave. He had studied the ability to travel through the world before. As long as he thinks of the keyword in his mind, the shuttle ability will feed back the approximate energy value required to travel through the corresponding world. This is like a fool's version of a search engine. After entering a keyword, it will prompt you for the traffic required to search and enter the corresponding web page. When Leon clicks confirm search and pays for traffic, the ability will activate, teleporting him to the target world. But there is a slight problem. This engine cannot recognize the names of movies from previous lives. He can only search the world using keywords such as low upper limit and good medical technology. Not necessarily. What can you do? Could it be filling it with silicone or something like that? Tony looked disgusted. Don't come up with such a bad idea. I would rather build a new element arc reactor and install it. Of course not. I plan to travel across the world recently, and I will definitely be able to bring you good news by then. Leon said. Time travel. Tony muttered a few words. His eyes suddenly lit up. Are you planning to go to other worlds? God, you must take me with you. I've wanted to go for a long time. He suddenly became extremely excited. That's a different world. Will there be another me or another you there? Is it possible that in that world I will be Superman and you will be Iron Man? The more Tony talked, the more excited he became. He walked a few steps quickly and almost scratched his head. Wait a minute, let me think about what I need to bring to travel across the world. Steel armor, electronic equipment, US dollars. No, I have to bring gold, and it's starting again. This guy is getting excited again, just minding his own business. Leon stopped Tony helplessly. You misunderstood again. I only plan to go alone, without you. Without me. Tony was stunned. Yes, no, Leon emphasized. Really? Tony looked in disbelief. This really doesn't happen, Leon affirmed. You just left me like this. Tony's stretched out fingers were trembling. Forget it if you give me a third-hand birthday gift, but you won't take me with you when you go on a trip. The corner of Leon's mouth twitched, and Tony's expression now resembled that of a husky abandoned by its owner, confused and shocked. No, because there are uncertainties here, I have to try traveling through it myself first. If the time travel process is stable and you can bring people with you, well, it seems that you can indeed bring people with you. Anyway, if I have the chance to take you through time again in the future, wouldn't I want to go to the 600th world? I'll take you with me when the time comes. Leon feels that his ability to travel is very inclusive. As long as he has enough energy, I'm afraid he can pack up the entire Marvel universe and take it away. But this is the first time after all. I have a body of steel and can try and make mistakes, but you can't. Leon gave the reason. After hearing the explanation, Tony opened his mouth to say something else, but in the end he just showed a regretful expression. He knew he was out of luck. After all, Leon was right, you should be more cautious when traveling through time for the first time. Adding him at this time is no different than adding a burden. He spread his hands and said, have you ever thought about what you would do if you just traveled to another world and encountered kryptonite? Well, I went there wearing super mark number 1. Leon thought for a while. That's right, you have to wear battle armor. Also, bring 5 arc reactors, just in case. There are also disinfection issues and equivalents, you have to. Tony gave a long list of instructions. He didn't stop until his mouth became dry and he drank some water. Okay, just make these preparations. When you are sure you want to travel, tell me and I will watch from the side. The next day, at dusk, Leon stood among a circle of testing equipment in the underground garage. He was wearing Super Mark I and carrying a large travel backpack. The backpack contains 5 arc reactors, 10 pieces of 1 kilogram gold, disinfectant spray, hemostatic spray. This backpack prepared by Tony himself has all kinds of emergency items. Although Leon thinks most of them are unnecessary. Are you sure you want to leave now? Tony asked from behind the projection screen. That's right, Leon nodded, but I should be back soon. You know that with my power, anything I do is easy. Tony shook his head. I'm only worried about the kryptonite and the red sun. After going there, if you encounter danger, you must come back immediately. Don't worry, even if I am restrained and lose my superpowers, I can still live well. Leon nodded his head with his finger. Superman has weaknesses, but the knowledge in his head will not disappear. I'm leaving. He carried his travel bag behind his armor. I hope you have successfully developed new elements when I come back. Tony went to the industrial park this morning and brought back the design display board. Then you have to come back soon, because I can create the core of the new element tonight. Tony smiled proudly. He did some research in the afternoon, and based on Leon's tips, he discovered the secret of the display board. That's a construction diagram of a new element. He only needs to analyze this structural diagram and use a particle collider to synthesize it, and soon he will be able to successfully obtain a new element. Proud as Tony, after figuring everything out, he couldn't help but marvel at his father's wisdom. I hope so. Leon was also happy for his brother. I'm leaving, take care of yourself and Pepper. Leon closed his eyes after speaking. On the other side, Tony also turned on each instrument and started recording field data. Recording the data of time travel is an opportunity that many scientists dream of, and of course he will not let it go. Start searching the world. Keywords: treatment of severed limbs, improvement of Kryptonian strength, lower upper limit of extraordinary power in the world, no threat. Successfully anchoring the world. Calculate the energy required to travel. Travel confirmed. Leon mobilized his ability to travel in his heart and determined each process and value. Soon, a mysterious message appeared in his mind, letting him immediately understand that the search for the different world had been successful. Dozens of options appeared in his consciousness, all of which were worlds that met the requirements. Those worlds are like bubbles, like chaotic black holes, with no information visible. He could only choose one at random. Then a feeling between reality and reality came and enveloped him. In this state, he can vaguely sense the energy he needs to consume to travel through the world he is currently anchored to. About 1% of one's own physical strength. In terms of Leon's human-shaped natural disaster-like strength. This energy is huge. Converted to a specific value, it is equivalent to at least 9 full days of global power generation. Now Leon finally understood why the gift from the original world was Kryptonian blood and time travel. If only Kryptonian blood. If he wants to achieve unlimited improvement in strength, he can only rack his brains to find opportunities in the Marvel world. And if only the ability to travel through time and space. I'm afraid it would cost him countless time and money to even collect the energy needed to travel. But now that these two abilities are combined, everything becomes logical and complementary. Leon felt an inexplicable feeling in his heart. Perhaps with the combination of the two abilities, he can really easily break the upper limit and become the strongest. Didn't waste much time. Leon finally confirmed in his mind that he would start traveling through time. As soon as the thought came out, a majestic suction force appeared in his body out of thin air. It was as if there was a black hole connected to his limbs and bones at this moment, frantically extracting everything that could be extracted. But this suction comes and goes quickly. After absorbing 1% of Leon's physical strength, the suction force will disappear automatically. Instead, a pull came over Leon. Leon had a premonition and only had time to open his eyes and wave to Tony. The next second, he disappeared out of thin air. When he disappeared, the space he was in didn't even have any fluctuations. No wormhole appeared to suck him away. There is no gate of heaven open to guide his way. He is like a painting on a drawing software. After being selected and clicked to cut, he disappears from the picture instantly. Not a trace was left behind. "Thank you very much," Tony exclaimed. "This is unscientific." All the instruments on site did not move at all, as if this place had not changed from beginning to end. In Tony's eyes, Leon's disappearance was like a drop of seawater evaporating in the sea, without causing any waves. Tony ran frantically to the position in front of Leon and looked up and down. He felt that his worldview was challenged again. How can it be possible to travel across the world so quietly? This is not scientific at all. But what made him even more uncomfortable was actually another thing. "Leon, you kid, you have to come back quickly." As soon as Leon left, Tony felt extremely uncomfortable. Leon felt as if he had entered nothingness. He was pushed by a force and moved in this void. "I couldn't open my eyes or speak. I felt like an ant that had accidentally fallen into the river and drifted with the current. But it's not quite right to describe it this way. There was actually no sense of restraint on him, he just couldn't move and kept moving forward. It sounds like he was in a vegetative state in an ambulance and was taken to the hospital. But this feeling didn't last long. At a certain moment, Leon felt like he had passed through a thin film like water. He could even feel the ripples in the film caused by him. Then everything was spinning. There was a real feeling under his feet, and Leon regained control of his body. He opened his eyes, and the power supply of the armor that had been extinguished at some point was also restarted at the same time, and the eyes on the visor shimmered. This is a world at war. The first image that came into view was a monstrous fire climbing up high-rise buildings. All the surrounding buildings had firelight, and the stars gathered together to burn the entire night sky red. Broken glass, collapsed street signs, cars with fronts caved in and doors torn apart after the collision. There was also a helicopter hovering over the building with its searchlights on. This is probably a city at war. Perhaps it had just been shelled. The empty cars jammed together in the middle of the road showed the panic of people fleeing. Jarvis went online at this time. "Master Leon, are you okay?" It seems that for unknown reasons while in the garage, all the circuit systems of the armor stopped running. "I'm fine. We've reached another world now, Jarvis." Leon looked around. "You terminated the operation because you traveled through time and space. Don't worry, try to connect to the network first." Jarvis's mission was to collect information online. And Leon stood there, closed his eyes, and cancelled all the brain's suppression of super hearing. Suddenly voices from all over the world came pouring in. The sound of wind, fire, screams, countless sounds swirled around him like a kaleidoscope. At this moment, the sound seems to have a shape, and each timbre represents a picture. He quickly found useful information in these voices. "Wesker, welcome to HCF, you are now our battlefield commander. Marvin, guard the west side gate. Chris, Jill and Brad are in danger now, I have to go back to find them. Tell King Ada that we must get the G-virus. Quote. Countless sounds have been reduced to the most valuable few. Leon suddenly opened his eyes. It turns out this is the world of the Resident Evil game version, and I'm in Raccoon City. It seems that the ability to travel can indeed travel to places outside the Marvel worldview. He recalled the plots he had seen in his previous life and made a judgment. The world of Resident Evil poses no threat to me. But it's strange how the retrieval process of time travel ability is carried out. Does this world really meet the requirements? The treatment of amputated limbs can be solved with viruses that are unique to the world. Even if it may turn into a zombie, it will definitely solve the problem. But will this world help me improve my strength? Leon was confused and felt a little ridiculous. The so-called T-virus, G virus, and bacteria masters will actually reduce the physical fitness of Kryptonians. Well, wait, strictly speaking, there is another way in this world to improve my strength. Leon raised his head and glanced at the night sky reddened by the fire, suddenly enlightened. There's a yellow sun there, too. I see, yellow solar energy improves my strength, there's no use for it. Marvel Earth has a yellow sun, am I here to experience sunbathing in a different world? Leon realized that the keywords he determined were not rigorous, so there were some problems with the final travel result. Next time I have to change the keyword to improve genetic potential, or have ways to become stronger besides sun exposure. Forget it, just think of it as accumulating experience. Jarvis, there is no need to collect information on the internet, we will go back. Leon was about to leave the biochemical world directly and go home. Suddenly, an invisible wave came, sweeping across his body from top to bottom. Leon was shocked, and before he could react, he felt his brain go cold. It was as if an invisible and skillful hand came down and gave his cerebral cortex a quick beauty spa. He felt refreshed for a moment, and felt as if his brain had been slightly optimized in some aspects. This external fluctuation was completely beneficial and harmless to him, so much so that the Man of Steel did not offer any resistance. What's happening here? Questions arose in Leon's mind. Although physically, he could tell that what just happened to him was a good thing. But this inexplicable good thing made him feel wary. But fortunately, the other party did not give the gift in vain. When Leon was confused, he suddenly discovered a strange fluctuation through his ability to travel through the world. He subconsciously activated his abilities. Suddenly, a piece of obscure and unspeakable information entered his mind through resonance with the ability to travel. Leon touched his forehead. There seemed to be an invisible ghost connected to his brain waves and speaking directly to his brain. Gift, rescue, doomsday, evolution, creature, more. That piece of information is very obscure. Leon mobilized his super brain to think tens of millions of times in 1 second, but he could only parse out 6 words. It seems that the party sending the message has no self-awareness. Just tendencies or desires that originate from instinct. Shared with him. This weird setting. Why is it a bit like world consciousness? Leon rubbed his chin. The world consciousness of Resident Evil is asking me for help. This seems to make sense. He first connected to the biochemical world through the ability to travel through the world, and then crossed over. The biochemical world can naturally use this ability as a bridge to send communication messages to him. Although the other party seems to have only instinct and no consciousness. It's not even clear whether it is world consciousness or not. Maybe it's just a collection of human pan-consciousness. However, the other party has already given benefits after all. The gift in that message probably refers to the brain spa just now. Leon felt very comfortable with this style of giving gifts first and then asking for help. He thought about it, although he didn't reach out to take it. But since he was so enthusiastic, he just stuffed the gift into his pocket. Well, the little guy from the biochemical world is so busy that he can consider helping out. It just so happened that he also had to study what the benefits he had gained were. But before that, I have to think carefully about what kind of favor my little brother asked me to do. After all, there are only a few ambiguous words, which is really. Boom. While Leon was thinking, a violent explosion suddenly occurred on the rooftop of the building above his head. A rumble of explosions caught his attention. Leon looked up. That helicopter that was just circling exploded. Amid the scattered flames, the wreckage of the plane spun and crashed into another building. After a series of impacts, the debris got stuck in the floor, ignited flames, and a large number of fragments of glass and building materials fell down. Leon felt that this scene had an inexplicable sense of déjà vu. Speaking of which, Resident Evil is also nicknamed the Vehicle Crisis. Almost all running vehicles that have appeared in the game have been destroyed. So it doesn't seem surprising that the plane exploded. Maybe it exploded because there were too many muscular men sitting inside and it was overwhelmed. Leon was speculating with a lot of evil in his heart. Suddenly his ears moved, and more sounds came from the tall building. As this sound, a car. Is there a car on the roof? He looked up in surprise again. On the roof of a 7-story building, a car rushed out of the guardrail and fell straight down on top of a tall, dark body. Boom. The car hit the big black man and hit the ground hard, making a heart-shaking sound. Falling behind, the car's center of gravity was unstable, and the entire body flipped over, with the roof facing downwards and hitting the ground again. At this time, the big black man who was held up was exposed, and his huge body lay on the ground without moving for a while. There was a girl in the car who kept screaming. She screamed in pain as the car hit the ground. She was repeatedly bumped against the roof and door of the car by various forces and reactions, and she screamed several times in succession. Leon felt so painful for her when he heard it. But what interested him more was that this girl's body seemed too tough. Falling from the roof of a 7-story building. After she was briefly dizzy, she started to crawl out of the car window with a groan. Of course, what's even more outrageous is the big black guy. The big black guy was knocked to the ground from the 7th floor by a car. After only a few seconds, he slowly got up and walked towards the car again. An invincible beauty like Xiaoqiang. A shameless black man, who was hit by a car and bombarded, but would continue to chase beautiful women. This combination is exactly the tracker-type tyrant launched by Jill Valentine in the game and Umbrella, the mastermind behind the scenes. The so-called tyrant is a biological weapon created by Umbrella Corporation by fusing and transforming the T-virus with an adapted clone. Leon still remembered that the tyrant in front of him was also called the Goddess of Revenge. As for Jill, he is a member of a special elite police team called Stars. She is one of the first batch of police officers to have experienced a biohazard leak in the Resident Evil world. He is also one of the main characters in this world. He has a strong sense of justice and a tough character. She has neat shoulder-length short hair, and her classic image is wearing a blue vest on her upper body. Known as the beautiful woman. Good, now I know where and when I am. The scene in front of me is exactly the scene in the game. It is now 1998, September 28, around 21 o'clock, near the Red Rock Station in Raccoon City. Leon analyzed the time node at this time based on his memory of the game. Master Leon, you were right, it is 21:14 now, and you are less than a kilometer away from Redstone Station. Jarvis suddenly spoke. I knew it. Leon raised his eyebrows and flicked off his visor. It seems you are already connected to the internet. Yes, but you have asked me to stop collecting information on the internet before, so I don't know much about this world at the moment. Forget the previous instruction, you continue to collect information, focusing on the movements of Umbrella Company, the Eagle Military, and the HCF organization. Okay, Master. Leon didn't speak anymore. He smelled the thick smell of gunpowder smoke in the air and noticed that Jill had climbed out of the car window. However, Jill happened to see him at this time. The two looked at each other for a second, and Jill's face showed a look of urgency visible to the naked eye. Are you human? Leon wore steel armor, which was a bit ahead of his time in 1998. But as soon as Jill asked the question, she already had the answer in her heart. She waved desperately to Leon. Run. Run quickly. Don't wait. Go to a safe place. It's dangerous here. She shouted loudly, not noticing that the car behind her was already on fire. The car was about to explode, and the tyrant was about to walk behind her. If she doesn't hurry up and move, then she will first be overwhelmed by the explosion, and then she will be hit by the tyrant. However, in this case, the choice she made subconsciously was to give priority to reminding the strangely dressed passerby she just saw and asking him to leave quickly. Boom. Sure enough, the car exploded. The flames of the explosion spread and were about to engulf Jill. Jill discovered this too. She turned around and wanted to escape, but it was too late. She could only watch as the flames spit out into her face. She was still lying on the ground at this time, her cheeks clearly feeling the blazing heat of the flames, and she couldn't help but show a look of despair. In a trance, the scene before her eyes seemed to appear 2 months ago, when she and her teammates encountered zombies at a mansion on the outskirts of Raccoon City. Perhaps from the day she met these monsters, she was destined to die at their hands. Only, Jill didn't have time to finish thinking about the last words in her heart. Suddenly there was a blur in front of my eyes. The scene in front of him instantly moved back more than 10 meters. The flames that were supposed to devour her bloomed in the distance, but instead blew up the tyrant. Her eyes blinked blankly twice, breathed a sigh of relief, and then suddenly widened again. What just happened? She looked to the side and saw the man wearing a strange iron shell standing beside her, grabbing her arm. Judging from the touch coming from the arm, the opponent seemed to be wearing a very heavy armor. But isn't the texture of this armor a little too good? The shiny blue-red shell and streamlined figure seemed to be more pleasing to the eye than a space rocket. And the round light on the chest looks like a super-era mecha warrior from a science fiction movie. But how is this possible? Something like time and space. Gil suddenly thought that he had just suddenly retreated 10 meters as if in a flash, and his expression suddenly changed. You, who are you? She looked up at the head of the armor. The man's visor closed at some point, and only 2 faint blue lights lit up. Okay, now it looks more like a mecha from a science fiction movie. I'll explain later. A male voice came from under the armor. When Jill heard this voice, she suddenly remembered. What she saw under that armor before was a male face, with seemingly handsome features. Excuse me, are you? She wanted to ask something more. Suddenly there was a loud noise from the sea of fire dozens of meters away. A sound broke through the air. The mecha warrior beside her suddenly took a step forward. A thud caught half of the throne car body wreckage. The sea of fire in the distance now split into 2. The dark tyrant walked out of the flames, his whole body burning with flames. Oh, look at this guy, there is absolutely no warmer guy in the world than him. The mecha warrior joked. Jill was startled, looking at the tyrant in the distance covered in flames, thinking subconsciously, and actually felt that it was indeed quite warm. But she quickly realized that this was the tyrant BOW. What the hell kind of sweet man? The corner of her mouth twitched, and she stood up on the ground, side by side with the mecha warrior. What should we do now? Can you beat that bitcha? She said bold and dirty words as soon as she spoke. However, before the mecha warrior could answer, a roar came from the other side of the street. Hey, asshole, show me this way. Gil turned his head following the sound and saw a rocket flying towards the tyrant from the other side. There are still people with weapons of mass destruction. She felt in her heart that she was now stable. The rocket hit the undefended black man and exploded instantly on it. The tyrant's body stiffened in the firelight, looking seriously injured. However, a second rocket was immediately fired from the other end of the street, causing secondary damage to the tyrant. Most of the city block was illuminated by the flames of the explosion. Even the 2-6 meter tall, invulnerable tyrant. Under 2 consecutive rockets, he bent his knees crookedly and fell to the ground. Are you okay? The man who fired the rocket dropped his launcher and ran towards the 2 of them. He was wearing the green uniform of Umbrella's UBCS unit, and his fluffy black hairstyle swayed with his movements. He looks very sharp-eyed and has the tough temperament of a professional soldier. Finally we caught up. My name is Carlos and I'm here to save you. He ran to the 2 of them. That monster should be dead. Follow me, I'll take you to the subway station, where our Umbrella emergency response team has built a shelter and is preparing to send the survivors out of the city. Umbrella. Gil, who had just breathed a sigh of relief, suddenly became excited when he heard this. Are you kidding me? What Raccoon City is now is because of you. Will you protect civilians? She was filled with indignation. The cause of the biochemical crisis in Raccoon City was the leak of the virus in Umbrella's underground research institute. It was a strain called the T-virus. After infection, the patient's bone and muscle strength will be increased. But it can also cause the patient's skull to become brittle, the body to erode, and a desire to crazily eat flesh and blood and spread the virus. After the virus leaked, Umbrella simply abandoned the city and even used it as a testing ground. The reason why this city fell was not only Umbrella's fueling the flames, but also the officials' connivance. Originally, after the Eagle officials discovered the anomaly, they planned to send troops for support. But there was a guy named Simmons in the military committee who proposed to wait and see and make the virus research results into public property. So the military troops finally surrounded and failed to attack. They only restricted the access of people in Raccoon City, but did not send anyone into the city to clean up zombies. Carlos didn't know about these things. Faced with Jill's doubts, he was completely confused. What are you talking about? Carlo thought Gil was making a fuss. He took a few steps back. Well, you don't have to believe me, but currently you can only take the subway if you want to leave the city. It's up to you whether you want to follow. And this guy, what is this on you? Quote. Only then did Carlos notice that the second man next to him was actually wearing handsome steel armor. He looked like an unlucky mecha warrior actor who had just left the set of a science fiction movie when a disaster broke out. Gil also turned around and looked over. Yes, mecha warrior, I also want to ask, you. Before she finished asking her question, she was interrupted again. Boom, boom, the dull sound of a hammer hitting the ground sounded in the distance without warning. Don't worry about me, you and I are not walking the same path. The mecha warrior took a step forward. The two looked in his direction. The tyrant who originally fell to the ground in the distance regained his mobility at some point. The flames on the opponent's body had long been extinguished, and he was slowly getting up with his hands on the ground. The dull knocking sound was the sound made by the other party's hand on the ground. Hey, it's fake. He was hit by 2 rockets and can still move. What kind of monster is this? Carlos murmured to himself. You've never seen anything like this? Jill asked. I only know what it is looking for. It has a very clear purpose and will never give up until it reaches its goal. Carlos said, you two, it's time for us to leave, this guy can't be killed at all. But the mecha warrior suddenly smiled and said, according to you, is he a very dedicated man? Ah, single-mindedness. The two of them were stunned by the sudden joke. The mecha warrior ignored them and reached out to take off the travel bag on his back and threw it aside. Then, he actually flew up. Thank you very much. Jill and both of them were dumbfounded. This iron lump actually spurted flames from its back and feet and flew up. I thought the mecha warriors were just dressed in a sci-fi style. Who would have thought that people really have the ability to do science fiction? When Jill thought about her previous flashback, she was even more shocked. The two of them swallowed their saliva in horror, but they did not forget to run behind the bunker and poke their heads out to observe the battle between mechas and biological weapons. Fake, I feel like I've traveled through time in a movie. Jill's eyes widened. I saw the mecha warrior flying in the air, stretching out his hands towards the tyrant. As the sound of high-tech energy gathering sounded, he actually sprayed energy lasers from the palm of his hand. 2 laser beams fell on the tyrant like thunder. With just one encounter, his chest was easily penetrated. The tyrant's slow pace suddenly stopped, and his body soon burned with flames again, and his huge body collapsed. As this solved, it shouldn't be possible to stand up again. Jill was indescribably shocked. However, her words just fell. The tyrant had 2 holes in his chest, and his tall body suddenly began to fall apart inch by inch. Its pitch black coat of bulletproof material remains intact under rockets. But within a few breaths, the coat was completely shattered. Its body tore apart and expanded at the same time, like a self-proliferating soap bubble. In a few seconds, the 2-6-meter tall tyrant tripled in size. It became like a canine, its hands and feet turned into sharp claws, and fin-like bone spurs protruded from its limbs and back. It was lying on the ground, breathing heavily. The rumbling breathing sound was like an old train steam engine burning coal. The tyrant is really ugly in this form. Mecha Warrior commented, the viruses and parasites in the body are completely out of control and have reached the edge of destruction. The tracker tyrant can maintain his sanity thanks to a strange parasite existing in his body. Its current appearance is the result of out-of-control parasites and crazy limb regeneration and proliferation. Although his strength has been greatly improved, his reason has also disappeared. Stop transforming and end it as soon as possible. It will make me look stupid if you are the only one transforming. The mecha warrior put down his hands, but the next second, small missile heads popped out from his shoulders, arms, waist and other places. Emission. Fire all the bombs. Dozens of fires were ignited, and the small missiles drew an arc and approached the second-form tyrant. The tyrant had a premonition of danger. He kicked off the ground with his powerful legs, jumped to the wall like a praying mantis, and firmly anchored himself. It attempts to use its high mobility to avoid danger. But the missiles fired from the mecha warriors have their own tracking effect. Small missiles turned in the air and chased after the tyrant. This was the first time for Jill to see the tyrant running away with his head in his arms, and even then he could not escape successfully. Boom. First, the first missile hit the tyrant. Then came all the remaining small missiles. Explosions followed one after another. although the noise is not louder than when a rocket explodes. But every small missile seemed to hit the tyrant's vitals, causing its body to be severely damaged and causing it to stagger and roar. When the last small missile exploded, the tyrant's body was only left with charred joints, leaning lifelessly against the wall without any movement. This time he should be really dead. Gil looked at the dead tyrant and then at the mecha warriors in the air, with wonder in his eyes. This is simply a mobile arsenal. It's so cool. When Gil was training in the army, he was most outstanding in his explosive ability. At this moment, she only felt that the mecha warrior in the sky was so handsome, it was almost shining. Leon floated in the air, looking at the tyrant with only bones left on the ground. He also felt that the other party should be completely dead this time. The vitality is indeed very tenacious. Oh, T-virus, is it another direction of the evolution of life? He turned to thinking about the recourse the world consciousness had made to him. The world of Resident Evil takes a completely different path from him in terms of extraordinary power. Kryptonians attribute their power to themselves, and all their power comes from their own cells and blood, and of course, yellow sunlight. Biohazard uses biochemical power to increase one's body. Follow the game plot. Basically it can be divided into 3 categories: viruses, parasites, and fungi. Each of the 3 major categories has its own origin. Among them, virus technology has flourished the most. Its origins are interesting. In ancient times, a flower called the Sun Staircase was born in Africa, which gave birth to a splendid civilization there. But later this civilization was lost in history. By the 1960s, the founders of Umbrella are Spencer, Marcus, and Edward. The plant was again found in Africa. They come from this Sun Staircase flower. A strain named progenitor virus was extracted. More than 10 years later, Marcus successfully combined the progenitor virus with leeches to develop the T-virus. During this period, Edward's son Alexander set up a base in Antarctica, used the genes of his ancestors to cultivate 2 descendants, and develop the T. Veronica virus there. Marcus's student and Spencer's informant, William Burkin, developed a variant of the T virus called the G virus in an underground laboratory in Raccoon City. These 3 viruses are the main strains in the early stages of the Resident Evil game world. There are other T fear virus, T abyss virus, C virus, they have not been developed yet. Apart from viruses, the rest are parasites and fungi. These 2 evolutionary pathways have much fewer branches. In terms of parasites, the main one is a parasite called Placa. It appeared underground hundreds of years ago in the mountains of Spain's Tooth Valley and is an ancient parasite. Unlike viruses, it can strengthen the host while also allowing the host to retain some of its sanity. Therefore, many forces later used Placa parasites to control biological weapons. As for the fungus, it is a kind of mold that originates from the underground of a village in Eastern Europe and has a dark appearance. This mold first appeared hundreds of years ago. It can store the genes, consciousness and memory of many living things. Even when many molds came together, a large, baby-shaped mold called the fungus master was born. This big mold can link all the memories and consciousness stored in the hyphae, like a network relay. And some of the small molds it produces are named E-molds, or gifts. Human beings infected by E-mold will not only greatly improve their physical fitness, but also retain relatively complete rationality. However, their consciousness is connected to the fungus owner and will be restricted and dominated by higher-level infected people. Ethan, the protagonist of the 7th and 8th generations of the game, and his daughter Rose are the type of people who perfectly integrate E-mold. However, Rose was born more than 20 years later, and it was still too far away from the current time. Leon sorted out the general situation of the biohazard world in his mind. In my mind, I had some idea of the world's request for help. Gift, rescue, doomsday, evolution, creature, more. Gift naturally refers to the invisible reinforcement he received. Salvation, doomsday, should be the literal meaning. There have been several annihilation crises in the Resident Evil world, but they were all successfully overcome in the original work. The biggest crisis was probably the chaos that carried the C virus in the 6th generation of the game and could infect the world. The creature named Chaos has average strength, but the virus it carries can infect the entire ocean and then the whole world in a short period of time. Of course, that has nothing to do with Leon. After all, it is very simple for him to solve these crises now, just kill all the people who caused trouble in advance. But Leon was a little confused about this. If the so-called doomsday refers to various biological crises, then it should not be the consciousness of the world that seeks help from him. After all, even if all humans and other living things die, the Earth can still continue to revolve around the sun safely. However, it seems that it cannot be concluded immediately. What if the Resident Evil world is the same as parts of the Marvel world? There are rules similar to spider web incident. That is, once some important figures die or do not die, the world will have a chain reaction and be destroyed. Then he can understand the motivation of world consciousness to ask for help. After all, according to this theory, if humans perish, the world will also end. But Leon felt that the real reason shouldn't be so weird. He pressed the question temporarily and continued his analysis. The remaining entries: evolution, biology, it's not difficult to understand. Probably asking him to help promote global biological evolution. This fits well with the Resident Evil theme. He used to sigh when playing games. It is said that all weird things can be brewed in Resident Evil. It's a virus and it's a mold. There is simply no way for people to survive. But now the game has become real, and the world may still have instinctive consciousness. Everything has another explanation. In order to promote biological evolution, the world has actively created these dangerous but highly potential species. Various viruses, molds, and parasites confuse and mutate with each other, which is very consistent with the goals of evolution. Perhaps the two words evolution, biology are what the world mainly wants him to help. As for the last more, Leon couldn't quite understand it. He closed his eyes and tried to experience the emotions shared by the world's consciousness. Slowly, he discovered that there is information about more in this section. They all carry a mixture of encouragement, expectation, and impatience. He thought about it. I think this is probably the consciousness of the world telling him that after he completes his request for help, it will give him more feedback. Well, even the world's consciousness knows how to make a big deal these days. Leon tapped the metal visor with his fingers. But since there will be follow-up feedback, I will be more serious. Although I still don't know what the gift I got before is. But the super brain had a vague intuition that gift was of great use to him. First of all, as the first step to saving the world, let's practice solving the crisis in Raccoon City. He stopped the armor's propulsion system and landed on the ground. In the original work, there is T-virus serum in the hospital. I can use that serum to try to reversely derive an antidote with wider applicability. There is also Umbrella's underground laboratory. The G-virus there cannot be let go. It is needed to promote biological evolution. Leon was thinking. His armor was lightly knocked. Hello. Gil walked to his left and stared intently at the arc reactor on the chest of the armor. You're really surprised that such a tight armor can contain so many weapons. I haven't introduced you yet, but I am Jill Valentine, a member of STARS. Can I ask, who are you? Are you a classified combatant from the military? Carlos also came over. Wow. Brother, you were so handsome just now. Even after the black guy turned into a fool, you killed him instantly. Leon Stark. Leon nodded slightly to the two of them and introduced himself. You'd better get out of here quickly. The zombies will come over when they hear the noise. Why don't you go to the subway station together? Ah, I understand. Brother Stark, you are the person sent by above to solve the problem, right? Carlos couldn't help but touch the armor. I didn't know this country's technology was so powerful. Those people hide it so deeply. Jill seemed to think so. She looked at Leon much more kindly, as if she was seeing her comrade in arms. She stretched out her hand. I was in the Delta Force. Which force are you from, Leon? Leon shook her arm with his armor-wrapped arm. You have misunderstood, he said. I am not from your country, nor am I from your world. World? Are you saying that we are not of the same class as you? Jill frowned slightly. Literally, I'm from another world. Leon let go of his hand. I'm not here to wipe Umbrella's butt. It was the consciousness of your world that hired me. It lets me help save the world. So you should leave as soon as possible and gather as many civilians as possible. I may even send you some T-virus vaccines later. After saying that, he turned around, found the direction of Raccoon City Hospital, and prepared to fly there. Carlos smiled and shouted from behind, "Hey, brother Leon, are you kidding, right? How is this possible in another world? Do you have any evidence?" Although this handsome instant noodle guy has some funny attributes. But he is also past the age where he would believe in passionate stories about saviors from another world. He felt that the mecha warrior in front of him might have suffered from PTSD during the war and was mentally abnormal. The person hired by the world consciousness means the savior. Jill's eyes also became weird. She thought about the teleportation just now and felt a little shaken, but quickly denied it. A savior from another world, how is this possible? She thought about it and felt that Leon was probably joking to keep it secret. At this time Leon flew straight up. However, he did not turn on the thruster on the armor. He hadn't used the armor for a long time, and he had been thinking about a lot of things just now. For a moment, he even forgot to turn on the thruster and use the biological force field to fly out of habit. So the iron shell weighing several tons flew lightly in the air, and Leon's voice came out, as if it had been muffled by a can. "I don't have to prove it, Carlos. You don't need to believe me, and I don't need you to believe it. Just do what you were doing before. This may save a few more people." Leon looked around in the air. "Also, you should go, there are zombies surrounding you." Jill and the other two didn't notice that the steel armor had opened up the board of Newton's coffin and floated there out of thin air. They looked around, and sure enough, there were batches of zombies limping towards the corners of the streets. "We have to go." Gil's face became solemn and he didn't forget to ask Leon, "What about you, where are you going? Maybe we can help you later." "I'm going to Raccoon City Hospital and the police station. The underground of the police station leads to the Umbrella Laboratory. If you need serum, you can go to me there," Leon said. He felt that plot characters like Gil and Carlos, it should be quite important to Party A's boss's world awareness. So he doesn't mind offering some help. Umbrella's laboratory, Gil still wanted to ask. Leon suddenly stretched out his hand to stop. "Wait a minute." His ears twitched. There are a lot of things crawling nearby. Well, it sounds like the sound of wireworms climbing. Ironworms, aren't they parasites? Why do they make a sound when they crawl? Both Jill and Jill's heads were filled with questions. Should we take him with us? His mental state seems to be worrying. If he is alone, he may have an accident, Carlos whispered. But Leon seems to be quite sober. Gil and Carlos thought differently. She felt that Leon was probably talking about some secret code just now. Professional special operations personnel all have secret codes. It's a pity that neither she nor the umbrella guy next to her are Leon's informants. The voice is there. Leon suddenly turned around in the air and looked at the location of the tyrant's remains. The dry bones there had turned into a bulging black substance. Countless black silk threads less than 1 millimeter thick, extending from that mass of material, covering the ground, crawling towards the zombies in the distance. This process makes no sound at all, just like rainwater flowing over the city ground. "Are there really wireworms?" Carlos exclaimed. "Wasn't that a code just now?" Jill exclaimed. "This tyrant is still alive," Leon judged. Leon raised his eyebrows. Why did Gil and Carlos speak so strangely? The brain circuits of these plot characters are just different from normal people. Obviously the point is that the tyrant is still alive. It turned out that one of the two people was paying attention to the iron worms, and the other was thinking about some random code. It's really strange. I'm afraid I may have suffered mental problems from fighting too much. Leon remembered that in the game, Jill had just experienced a biochemical leak 2 months ago. At this time, she still has a shadow in her heart, and she will not be able to sleep all day long. So there is indeed something wrong with the spirit. Tyrant. Jill and Jill woke up from a dream, their expressions suddenly changed. Is it still alive? Puff puff. When the two were surprised, continuous falling sounds suddenly came from all sides of the street. They looked over and saw that the approaching zombies fell down in pieces. Groups of black silk threads wrap them up, and then they are quickly absorbed and digested. It's absorbing other zombies, stop it. Gil quickly took out his gun and shot. However, the firepower of the pistol was negligible at this time. Carlos also fired, but to no avail. Leon watched this scene from the air, but did not join the two men's attack. He felt a little strange. Did the tracker tyrant in the game have such strong vitality? Okay, he can't figure it out either. After all, he always used the plug-in Fengling Yueying when playing games. No matter how strong the boss is, he will die in one shot. Let me see how many stages you can transform into, just like Frieza. Leon crossed his arms in the air. The tyrant absorbs zombies very quickly. Less than a minute. The dark mass suddenly grew to 8 meters long and 3 meters high. The huge body resembles a leech. It occupies most of the street, blocking the path that Jill and the two must pass through. What the hell is this? Gil gritted his teeth. Leon, is there anything else you can do? At this point, she can only hope that the mecha warrior with the strongest painting style among the 3 people present can perform miracles. She thought to herself, Leon is so mysterious, although he can talk about himself as the savior of another world. But maybe he really has a way to deal with the terrifying creature in front of him. Stand back and let me come. Leon's voice came from behind, sounding so calm and confident. At this moment, Jill suddenly felt extremely relieved. She thought of the generals she saw during army training, and one word came to her mind, the style of a general. Is it possible that Leon is a senior general in the army? Jill looked back with doubts and saw an unforgettable scene in her life. Jarvis, take off your armor. Gil heard Leon's voice coming from inside the mecha. Yes, master. A second voice seemed to appear in the mecha, and Jill thought he was hallucinating. However, after the second voice fell, the mecha's propeller suddenly spurted out flames. Then the iron scales opened one after another, revealing the man hiding inside. Jill's head went blank when the propeller started spitting fire. She suddenly realized, just now, this mecha was floating as if there was no gravity at all. No propulsion device is used at all. It's just, like a ghost. Jill felt creepy, and a chill instantly ran down her spine and into her mind. But the coolness was quickly replaced by horror. Leon's visor popped open, revealing a face with a high nose and thick eyebrows. His hair is scattered, and each strand has clear lines. The temperament has the laziness of the afternoon sun. The first thought that came to Jill's mind was that this man could be a Greek statue somewhere that came to life. It's just that Leon's clothes are very casual. The upper body is a rock gray knitted wool sweater, the lower body is khaki cargo shorts, and half of the legs are exposed wearing a pair of coffee-colored hiking shoes. Now he doesn't look like the serious, muscular statue. It's more like a student who yawns and goes out to buy breakfast early in the morning during summer vacation. If everything ends here, Gil would also think that the handsome man in front of him was a somewhat unremarkable elite warrior. But after the mecha was opened, the man named Leon actually flew straight up. Both Gil and Carlos were so horrified that they opened their mouths and cursed a generous thank you, with expressions as if they had seen God. They watched Leon fly into the air, his lazy temperament became sharp, and his black pupils danced with scarlet light. The mecha closed on its own and floated to the side, spraying flames. I originally wanted to get along with you as an ordinary person. But the tyrant is resurrected again and again. Now that things have come to an end, I've shown my cards. Actually, the armor is just my seal. Leon folded his arms and floated in the air, wearing loose shorts that reached his knees, showing a scornful air. In front of him, the giant leech that had expanded to 10 meters away suddenly exploded, shooting out countless thick and long tentacles. Those tentacles cut into each building, covering the building and dyeing it with its color as if they could reproduce infinitely. In the center of the tentacle, the original upper half of the tyrant's body was preserved. But now it has become huge again, standing like a small building in the middle of the street. Now it has no legs, only a pair of sharp claws nearly 10 meters long, and its head has become like a leech, covered with sharp teeth. Tyrant has officially entered its third phase. It was killed twice, and all its hatred was directed at Leon. As soon as it developed its body, it stretched its neck forward and let out a sky-shattering roar toward Leon. A strong wind spewed out from its mouth and swept across the street, causing the cars to sway and shake. Leon frowned as the strong wind blew towards his face. He had no intention of breathing in the bad breath of a tyrant. His figure suddenly moved sideways and appeared below the tyrant. Shut up! Leon roared in the air, breaking the sound barrier in an instant, and punched the tyrant on the head from bottom to top. The punch seemed like an understatement. But the tyrant finally regenerated his head again. But he couldn't even hold on to a face-to-face meeting. It instantly shattered into countless fragments like a balloon exploding. Even its body is not immune. Leon wrapped the tyrant with a biological force field, causing his entire body to receive force at the same time. So with one punch, be it the body of the tyrant or the building that is fixed by the tyrant's tentacles, they all rise from the ground, reflected back into the sky. A large swath of black biological tissue, along with a group of high-rise buildings and roads, flew through the air at the speed of sound. Leon didn't pause, then chased after him and punched again. Boom! Earth-shattering power exploded in the air. It was as if a meteorite fell from the sky. All buildings, the tyrant's body, and zombies were shattered into countless pieces of debris in an instant. Gil and Carlos on the ground felt as if they had lost a memory. Because they just blinked. No, they didn't even blink. As a result, all the surrounding buildings within a dozen meters broke through the sound barrier and flew into the air. Looking around again, there was only a bare, dry ground. Large areas of asphalt and cement on the ground have also disappeared, revealing the deep underground sewers. At this moment, the two of them were at a loss. They find that they no longer seem to recognize the world they were once familiar with. Gil stared blankly at Leon, who turned into a small dot in the sky. There was no thought at all in my heart, and all my brain capacity was used to feel shocked. Brush. There was no sound, and Leon, who was as far away as a small dot, suddenly appeared in front of the two of them the next moment. I'm sorry. Seeing how powerful and biologically beautiful the tyrant's body is, I accidentally used too much force. The big boy in loose shorts laughed and waved to the two of them. Although it caused some damage to the city, the residents here have long since become zombies, so it doesn't matter. Let's separate here. Goodbye, Gil and Carlos. Remember to gather the civilians. After saying that, Leon flew up again and waved to the armor on the side. Let's go, Jarvis, let's go to Raccoon City Hospital. Master Leon, do you need me to put on your armor for you? Why should I wear armor? I used to wear it because I was worried about encountering kryptonite and red sun, but there is nothing in this world that can hurt me, so I don't need to wear it. Okay, Master, let's go, take the bag Tony gave us and follow us. When Leon finished speaking, the person had disappeared from where he was. With his current strength, he can accelerate to Mach 100 in 1 second. And as long as he is willing, the noise caused by high-speed movement under the cover of the biological force field can even be smaller than the sound of the natural wind in the city. Before Gil and Carlos could even turn their heads from Leon's words, they had already lost sight of the figure. There was only the distant wind blowing in place, blowing up a thin layer of yellow sand on the ground. Ah, he just left like that. Carlos was dumbfounded. Okay. It seems so. Jill wasn't much better. He really is the savior. He must be. I don't know, probably. He just said he was going to the Raccoon City Police Department. It seems right. Then what should we do now? Are we still going to the subway station? Carlos rubbed his cheek vigorously. Go. Jill looked back. She looked serious. Leon just told us to rescue civilians. I have to follow you to the subway station and keep an eye on you umbrella people. Her mind was still replaying the scene just now, although she didn't see anything clearly about the details of Leon's action. But the figure wearing overalls and shorts kept popping up in her mind. In comparison, other things seemed to be insignificant. While the two were talking, debris fell from the sky like a gray rain. Chapter 51. Raccoon City is a city developed by Umbrella Corporation. Back when it was a small Midwestern town, Umbrella comes here. As a result, hospitals, subways, universities, many modern buildings gradually appeared. Every building and every wall in this city has something to do with Umbrella. Walking on the streets of this city, anyone you pass by inadvertently may be an Umbrella employee. When Leon came to Raccoon City Hospital, I happened to hear the confession of an Umbrella researcher. My name is Nathaniel Bard, and the current time is 21:35 on September 28th. I am the director of the Virus Research Center. I wish someone could come and get me out. But I'm afraid there's little hope. They wouldn't want me to live. Umbrella, those guys will definitely kill me. The biological crisis in Raccoon City this time was caused by them. I hope what I say next can be spread through the video and save more people, at least my reputation will not be too bad. Umbrella Corporation, my employer, ordered me and my team to participate in the research of a biochemical weapon called the T-virus. Quote, I'm now buying cakes from Europe. What was that sound just now? I'll record it again later. Now I have to go see what's making the noise outside. It turns out that director Nathaniel Bard was recording a video. This video is the suicide note he prepared for himself. Leon listened to the various sounds coming from his ears, floating outside the hospital. He scanned the building with his supervision. Now the hospital has been occupied by infected organisms. The only living person is the director of the Virus Research Center who just confessed. But this guy is not far from death. Leon's impression. In a few hours, the director will be killed by people sent by Umbrella and the original T-virus liquid will be taken away. But now he was lucky and met Leon who came here. Leon landed, and the Super Mark I controlled by Jarvis arrived belatedly, silently following behind and landing together. Open the hospital door. Several zombies with bloody appearance turned around. They were all in uniform and were either doctors, nurses, or security personnel. Deal with them, Jarvis. Leon walked towards the location of the research director. Just leave the infected people outside to Jarvis. Research Director Bud is a middle-aged man wearing a white coat, with a half-bald head and a serious face. He was in his research room, separated from the hospital lobby by a heavy iron door. At this time, a lizard-like monster was hammering outside the iron door, its mouth wide open, and its roaring like thunder. Apparently it was attracted by Director Bard's voice. On the other side of the door, Director Bard, who knew he had made a mistake, was sweating profusely and covering his mouth, shaking like chaff. He probably wanted to keep quiet and hold on for a while, waiting for the lizard monster to change its target. Talk about it. Leon also knows that monster. Predator Beta, Umbrella's biological weapon, was airdropped into Raccoon City for testing. It is considered a mini-boss in the game, so Leon gave it a face punch behind it. A majestic burst of power. Hunter Beta and the iron door were blasted to the wall of the room, embedded in it like a pancake. Director Bard was startled by the explosion-like movement in the room and collapsed directly on the ground. His expression was horrified. The scene of the iron door being blasted into the wall reminds him of one of Umbrella's biological weapons called Tyrant. Now, Umbrella has used Tyrant to kill him, and he really can't escape death. Director Batter's lips trembled. After thinking clearly that he was bound to die, he climbed onto the chair tremblingly. He slid the mouse with trembling fingers and clicked on the video recording again, intending to use the last moment to record the unfinished confession. However, before he could say the first words, Leon walked in. Director Bud, Leon asked. Who are you? Director Batter looked confused. Why are you not a tyrant? I'm looking for T-virus stock solution and vaccine samples. It would be better if, Director, you could give me relevant research information. Leon noticed Director Bard's quickly alert look and his tone changed. Don't think too much. I'm not from Umbrella. I'm just looking for viruses and vaccines to save the city. Save the city. Director Batter became much bolder when facing humans. After all, he felt that the most he could do was die. The fear in one's heart is completely different between dying in the hands of humans and dying in the hands of a tyrant. He half squinted his eyes. How do you know there are viruses and vaccines here? No one except Umbrella can know about it. Leon thought for a while and then confessed directly. I am not from this world. I am here because your world consciousness asked me for help. All information comes from it. Leon puts the blame on world consciousness. He is outspoken in order to improve the efficiency of communication and trust. After all, in this world, as long as he doesn't seek death, nothing will happen to him. Rather than go to great lengths to fabricate a Wei Guangzhong identity, it would be better to tell the most incredible truth directly. To some extent, as long as he shows his strength, the most unbelievable truth will immediately become the most unbelievable fact. After finishing speaking, Leon didn't care what Director Bard's expression was. He puffed up a breath in his chest and blew it out sharply. Suddenly a breath flew like a sharp arrow, blasting a flat round hole in the opposite wall. Amidst the flying dust, Director Bard's eyes almost popped out. When he looked at Leon again, his rational eyes, which always advocated science, had become a little more fanatical. It's unbelievable. The breath exhaled from the mouth can actually destroy the wall. The power required is impossible for the human body. Are you really from a different world? Excuse me, what is the other world like? There is also world consciousness. Is our world originally conscious? I knew it, ha ha ha. Director Bud muttered at first, then began to ask boldly, and finally laughed. Leon was a little stunned. He thought that Director Bard would continue to question, or maybe be dubious. But I didn't expect that the other party would laugh like a hysterical person. But it's understandable. It seems that some scholars who love scientific research will become crazy and nagging when they encounter the ultimate problem in their field. What's more, what Director Bard encountered at this time was another world and world consciousness, an area that is almost impossible for humans to touch. He was very restrained in not going crazy on the spot. Snapped. Leon slapped Director Bard on the shoulder. We will discuss these issues later. Now, can you show me your scientific research materials and results? Director Batter was stunned and touched his half-bald forehead. Yes, come with me. I have printed all the research materials into paper versions, and the electronic versions have been destroyed. I originally planned to burn these materials before I died, but luckily you came in time. Director Bard took out a thick stack of documents from the safe and presented them to Leon with both hands. This is most of the key experimental data, as well as the research process and conclusions. Do you want to use these data to restart the research? Leon casually picked up the 30-centimeter thick bound document and began to read it on the spot. He said calmly, "No, I plan to finish reading it now and then go to the Umbrella Underground Research Institute for the next step of improvement." Have you finished reading it now? Bud thought to himself that it would be impossible to see the sea dry up and the rocks rot away. However, Leon's action of reading the book immediately shocked his eyes. That can't be said to be watching, not even browsing. Leon held a corner of the thick document and raised it. His fingers were slightly loose, and the pages suddenly fell down like a poker shuffle. In 2 or 3 seconds, a thick pile of documents was washed. Leon closed his eyes, and after a few seconds, pushed the file into Bud's arms. Okay, let's burn it. Okay, Bud was stunned, his eyes moving back and forth between the documents in his arms and Leon's face with his eyes closed. I mean, I have read it and memorized it. Leon explained with his eyes closed. But, you turn the book upside down. Bud didn't even question whether it was reasonable to read and memorize a 30-centimeter thick book so quickly. Because just the fact that the file was flipped from back to front was so explosive. Just write down all the words, and then reverse the page numbers in your mind. It's very simple. Leon still closed his eyes. Director Batter's mouth opened and closed. I don't know whether I should believe it or not. Anyway, he was doubting life right now. In the end, he looked at Leon, who was unmoved, and took the document, got some gasoline, and lit it on fire to burn it clean. He told himself in his mind, the other party is the savior that the world has found, and some strange things are normal. Leon kept standing there with his eyes closed. It's not that I'm pretending to be aloof on purpose. But when he wrote down all the experimental information in the file and began to understand it, he discovered an anomaly. He found that when he understood knowledge related to biochemical technology, his thinking became particularly sharp and flexible. The speed at which superbrains process information has not changed. But his research talent in the biochemical field has been greatly improved. Just by recalling the experimental information he just memorized, countless inspirations flashed through his mind. It turns out that the gift is this, it is indeed a kind of reinforcement that I need very much. Leon understood. It turns out that the gift given to him by world consciousness is to strengthen his research talent in the field of biochemistry. If you want to make a comparison, his talent in this area can be said to have reached the top level in the world of Resident Evil. The corresponding characters are probably William Burkin, Alexia, and Marcus. It's just that these people only have talents and don't have super brains. So even in terms of creativity and inspiration, everyone's talents are roughly the same. But their actual research level is countless levels worse than Leon at this time. After Director Bard burned all the information, Leon also opened his eyes. Do you need anything else? Director Bard immediately approached Leon. Take all the T-virus liquid and vaccine samples you have, it's time for us to leave. Leon shouted out of the room, Jarvis. Jarvis has been controlling the armor to eliminate the infected. It has gone from the first floor to the top floor. Almost all the zombies in this hospital were killed by it. Is Jarvis your companion? Director Bud asked carefully. He is considered a companion. You will know when you meet him. Half a minute passed before Leon finished speaking. The ceiling of the room was suddenly blasted open from above. Supermark number 1 fell from the sky and kneeled down on one knee in front of Leon. Black lines hang down from Leon's face. Is Tony's squatting posture popularized in the Stark family? Exoskeleton mecha. Bard on the side didn't have so many thoughts. He just felt dizzy. This is my artificial intelligence Jarvis. If you have anything, you can ask him for help. After Leon explained, he put the virus solution and vaccine that Bud had just taken out into the box and handed them to Jarvis. He reached out and lifted Director Bud's collar. Let's go to the Raccoon City Police Department. Amid the screams of the middle-aged man, Director Bard, Leon and Jarvis rose into the sky one after another. A few seconds later, Leon appeared above the police station, and Jarvis was coming 10 kilometers away. Director Bard, who was held in his hand, still had a look of shock on his face, and his screams were still loud and bold. Stop howling, we're here. Leon couldn't help shaking Bud's collar. There was nothing at Bard's feet. Being shaken like this, he screamed louder for a while. Even the zombies that were besieging the police station were attracted. They turned their heads strangely left and right, looking for the source of the screams. Leon simply ignored Director Bard. He turned on the X-ray camera and observed the police station. In the small police station, corpses and zombies are everywhere you can see. The police officers in the Raccoon City Police Department, except for the chief, are still very competent. The biological crisis broke out in this city on September 25, 3 days ago. It was the police department that responded quickly, setting up shelters, rescuing civilians, and planting explosives on the streets. Only then did most of the zombies in Raccoon City be eliminated, providing a glimmer of hope for the surviving residents. But the price is that there are very few police officers left in the police department. Of course, this is also related to the fact that the police officers do not understand the T-virus. The fall of the police station was initially due to the presence of infected people among the refugees being sheltered. Infected people broke out among the crowd, and zombies outside the police station continued to attack. Soon there were a large number of casualties in the police station. Now under the observation of Leon, there are only 5 people alive in the entire Raccoon City Police Department. One of them is the scumbag Director Brian Irons, who is always in the office. While the police chief was in office, has been conducting illegal cooperation with Umbrella Corporation. Collect bribes and conceal evidence of crime for the other party. He even opened an orphanage next to the police station to adopt orphans as experimental materials for Umbrella. It can be said that he is a complete scumbag. Leon couldn't stand this kind of scumbag. He released heat rays directly from the air, passed through several layers of walls, and nailed Mr. Director to the leather sofa. Poor Chief Irons. He was currently playing with the corpse of the mayor's daughter on the table, planning to make it into a specimen. But without warning, 2 red rays came through the wall and pierced his chest. He opened his mouth wide in disbelief, touched the 2 holes on his chest that were scabbed with blood due to the high temperature, made a hiccup sound, and fell down on the corpse in front of the table. On the other side, Jarvis finally rushed to Leon. Director Bud also regained his composure. He looked at the door of the police station below, his mouth wide open. Raccoon City Police Station, we're here now. He looked up at Leon, who was carrying him. Amazed. How did you do that? Leon smiled and did not answer, finally calmed down. To be honest, your scream just now was at least 3 decibels higher than when my brother called for help. That was an accident, it was an accident. I'm not like this usually. Director Batter realized his gaffe and shyly wiped the non-existent sweat from his forehead. He looked down and saw scattered zombies patrolling the dark streets. There were also a dozen guys with rotted chins and arms, blocking the police station door and beating them constantly. What should we do now? Mr. Savior, Bud asked tentatively. Leon smiled. Just call me Leon. The next step is to enter the police station. He began to lose altitude, exhaling freezing breath as he approached the ground. Layers of frost began to spread rapidly across the streets. All the standing and lying zombies turned into ice sculptures one after another. The ice has been surrounding the building circle within 300 meters of the police station, turning the entire area into a kingdom of frost. But the magic is, these layers of ice only cover the surface of the object. It does not affect its internal structure. One or two strong dim yellow street lamps, wrapped in ice, can continue to shine and heat, projecting strange colors through the ice. The cake seller. It's like the ice god has waved his scepter. Director Bard's eyes reflected the frozen street scene, which was so dreamy. This metaphor is not appropriate. Leon put Bud on the ground. After all, I only hold you in my hand. Director Batter felt Leon's friendly attitude towards him and laughed. It's an honor for me to be your scepter. Leon shook his head and walked to the police station first. Bud followed step by step, turning his head from time to time to look at the frozen zombies or street lights. He found that the zombies in the ice were not dead, but their bodies were gradually losing activity due to lack of oxygen. I think it won't be long before the zombies in this neighborhood will die silently. How amazing. He sighed and chased Leon again. Jarvis was in the last position, sonorously walking forward. Bypassing the cars blocking the street, the two came to the police station. There is a closed iron door that prevents zombies from invading the police station. A dozen zombies were stuck here and frozen into an iceberg. Leon bent his knuckles and knocked, and the iceberg shattered all over the ground together with the zombies inside. Standing in front of the frozen iron door, Leon looked through the gap at the police station behind the door. Then he asked Jarvis to turn on the armor's built-in PA system. Is there anyone inside? All the zombies on the street have been taken care of. Please open the door and let us in. The frustrating sound spread throughout the neighborhood, and the 4 people in the police station must have been woken up even if they were sleeping with earplugs on. Besides, they didn't sleep, but rested in the hall. Leon saw through perspective that the police inside acted quickly. The radio broadcast by the Raccoon City Police Department accepting refugees is still played repeatedly on some car radios. As long as they don't break in directly, they won't conflict with the police. Within a few minutes, the front door of the police station building opened. A tall, thin black policeman came out. He placed his right hand on the butt of the gun at his waist and held a flashlight in his left hand. He first looked around, then trotted to the iron gate. Behind him, 2 more people came out, both uniformed police officers, staring at the frost all over the street in shock. Wait a minute, I'll open the door and let you in. The black policeman scanned the bodies of the 2 lions and found that there were no obvious wounds and no firearms. He immediately prepared to open the door. He looked around. God, what happened here? Why did everything suddenly freeze over? It's September now. As he spoke, he pulled the door bolt. However, the door bolt was also frozen, and he couldn't push or pull it even after all his efforts. No, this thing is stuck inside. I have to find a flamethrower. The black policeman frowned. He looked around again. Fortunately, the zombies are frozen and unable to move. Don't make any noise here. I will be back soon. No, officer. Leon called to the black policeman before he turned around. He grabbed Bud's collar with his right hand, jumped over the iron gate, and landed next to the black man. Sometimes the most primitive way is the simplest. He raised an eyebrow at the black man. The black policeman took a step back and praised, "What's your kung fu? What an amazing skill. And thank you for saving me the time of running out to find a flamethrower." He pointed at the other 2 policemen. Come with me, let's go inside first. It's freezing and snowy outside and the temperature is extremely low. Maybe I can find you some coats from the police station. There's no need for clothes, I can handle this temperature. But I have a friend who needs to go in with me. Leon snapped his fingers. Jarvis, come in. The sound of the propeller immediately sounded outside the police station wall, and the steel armor sprayed flames into the courtyard. Fake. The black policeman subconsciously pulled out his gun. What the hell is this? We can go in later and talk slowly. Leon showed a mysterious smile. He walked into the police station first and glanced back before entering the door. In a building dozens of meters away, he saw a red skirt flashing by a window. A few minutes later, the interior hall of the police station. So, he is the savior. You are the director of the virus center. this is a mecca, the ice outside is caused by his breath, and Umbrella is the culprit of this crisis. After a few minutes of conversation, the black policeman made a summary. During the conversation, Leon's statement and Bud's guarantee were intertwined. The three police officers were skeptical at first. It wasn't until Leon froze a table with his freezing breath that their attitude finally changed. Now both parties have reached preliminary trust. Okay, we believe it for now. The three of them looked at each other, and the black man stood up and said, "Let us also introduce you, I am Marvin Branna." The black policeman pointed at the other middle-aged white policeman and the fat policeman. He is Elliot Edwards. The last one is the fat man. We all call him Lao Shing. It's just you three. Is there anyone else in the police station? Director Batter asked. He is still wearing a white coat and looks very authoritative. Marvin immediately pointed to the medical partition at the back. We still have another person, but his condition is not right. Mr. Bud, I'm afraid you have to go take a look. Bud didn't speak, but looked at Leon first. After Leon nodded, he agreed. I have no problem, take me to have a look. The three policemen looked at each other again, and they could all see that Leon was the dominant player in this group. This made them believe in what the two said before. Everyone's current location is at the entrance of the police station. Further inside is the reception desk. The front desk is surrounded by a floor paved with brown marble tiles and simple load-bearing stone columns. Because Leon's freezing breath did not spread to the room, so everything here is still as it was before. The entire hall presents a retro style. The wall lamps inlaid with stone pillars are plated with gold powder, and the light tone is close to the sun. Behind the front desk is a statue of the Statue of Liberty. Leon remembers that this police station was originally a museum. It was later remodeled by the director into its current appearance. The purpose was to cover the entrance to the underground Umbrella Laboratory. The entrance is just below the Statue of Liberty sculpture, and requires 3 stone slabs to open the mechanism. The group walked around the front desk. Between the Statue of Liberty statue and the reception desk, there is a makeshift emergency room made of medical partitions. On a stretcher bed inside, a man with a pale complexion was lying. He was very strong, with fat muscles and neatly short hair, but his body temperature was horribly low. He's infected. Bud could see the problem with this man at a glance. He opened the man's body and said, "The wound is on the arm. Depending on the situation, the infection will not last more than 3 hours. We can still save it. But I don't understand why you keep an infected person in the police station. This is very dangerous." Recently, Bard has seen too many examples where more people were killed because he couldn't bear to give up his companions. The expressions of the 3 police officers who were overjoyed when they heard that their teammates had rescued them suddenly became calm. He is a member of the STARS team, named Brad Vickers. He is very important to us. We found him collapsed in the alley, so we brought him back. Officer Marvin said, "There are only a few of us left here anyway. Even if he mutates, it doesn't matter. So, we still have a glimmer of hope in our hearts, and fortunately we have waited for you." What do you mean by what you just said about being saved? The 3 policemen looked at Bud and Leon expectantly. We have brought T-virus vaccine and serum, which can resolve the infection. Leon called Jarvis over and opened the suitcase. There are 3 blue virus stalks, 5 rose red vaccine samples, and 4 antiviral serums. Vaccine. Is there a vaccine for cannibalism? Marvin was trembling. If they had obtained the vaccine earlier, how could they have lost so many companions? Umbrella develops viruses, and of course it will also develop corresponding vaccines. Bud took out a serum from the box and pricked it into Brad's arm. After a tube of serum was drained, Brad's pale complexion immediately improved a little. The 3 police officers felt reassured and had a little more trust in Leon's previous words. Both of you, since you are planning to save this city, you should come to the police station with a purpose. The middle-aged policeman Elliot asked, "I wonder what we can do to help." Leon turned and walked towards the Statue of Liberty sculpture. That's right, a research institute of Umbrella Company is just below the police station. I'm going to go in there and make a better vaccine. So you need to enter it through the entrance of the institute located in the police station. Elliot was very excited when he heard this. Are you serious? I knew there was a secret passage here. Officer Phillips was indeed right. It's a pity. She will never hear the news again. Phillips seems to be one of his female bosses, but she died before. Leon patted the middle-aged police officer on the shoulder. You have done a good job. Now step aside and I'll open the passage. Several people retreated in confusion. I saw Leon half crouching in front of the Statue of Liberty, and suddenly struck out like lightning, smashing through the thick stone slab under the sculpture. Those stone slabs fixed with steel bars. It was like soft jelly in front of him. No sense of sluggishness at all. His face was as pale as a lake, his breathing was calm, and even the muscles in his arms were not tense. Just a sudden movement of raising his hand. Then the entire Statue of Liberty and its foundation stone were torn down. It was as easy as lifting a piece of tofu. This scene made the eyes of the other people present jump. It was too violent and cruel. But no one has the energy to pay attention to this. Because after the Statue of Liberty was knocked down, a section of stone steps was exposed underneath. Under the stairs is an open secret room with exquisite decoration. Even if you only see a corner, you can feel the luxurious atmosphere. Hell, this secret room is right under our noses, but we haven't discovered it for so many years. Elliot shouted, holding his head. Marvin's expression was also very different. It's the director. He colluded with Umbrella. The fat police officer was so angry that he said nothing. They looked at Leon. Mr. Leon, what should we do now? Leon thought for a while. First search for survivors in the surrounding areas, deal with the remaining zombies in the police station, and then enter the underground research institute together. I've frozen all the zombies outside. I'll leave it to you to search for survivors. Is that okay? The black man Marvin nodded immediately. Don't worry, the three of us will set off right now. The three quickly packed up their equipment, formed a formation and left the police station. Leon looked at the armor again. Jarvis, you go and eliminate the zombies in the police station. Okay, Master. Jarvis took off automatically and rushed into various offices of the police station to clean up all the zombies. 20 minutes later, Super Mark I returned to the hall with some zombie blood stains. There was a scratch on its chest, which must have been caused by a sneak attack by a monster called a licker. Mission accomplished, Master, Jarvis reported. On the other side, Marvin's team also returned with 3 survivors. They are a father and daughter, and an Asian woman. A strange father-daughter duo. My father has a round figure and a tough guy temperament. He kept his daughter in his arms and didn't let her show up. The Asian woman is wearing a red dress, her long legs are wrapped in black stockings, and she wears high heels. She looks gorgeous, but has a cold temperament, and something called charm is jumping out of the corners of her eyes and eyebrows. Mr. Leon, these are the only survivors around. Marvin was a little frustrated. I can't find anyone else. It's okay. When the new vaccine is produced, more people will be saved. Leon patted Marvin on the shoulder. The middle-aged police officer Elliot introduced. This is the owner of Kendo's gun shop behind the police station, Robert Kendo and his daughter. And this lady is in an abandoned building. I am an FBI federal investigator. The Asian woman took out an ID and said, Ada Wong, come here to investigate Umbrella. She looked at Leon. I heard they said you are the savior, can you give me some evidence? Sorry, I don't need to prove it. Leon couldn't help laughing. When he froze the streets around the police station, Ada Wong was watching from a certain building. Asking these things now is undoubtedly to investigate more information about him. It doesn't matter what you are, savior or god, it doesn't matter. Kendo, the father of the 3, suddenly shouted. They said you have antiviral serum, right? Give me the serum. As long as you give me the serum, I will do whatever you say. Everyone looked at him in shock. Director Batter made an observation and exclaimed, the girl in his arms is an infected person. Leon added, but it's still early days. If you are just infected, you can still be saved. Without his command, Jarvis automatically controlled the armor to take out the serum, and before anyone could react, he gave the little girl an injection. The little girl, who was barely awake at first, collapsed into her father's arms after one injection. Emma, how are you? How dare you, you idiot. Emma, your eyes are starting to recover. The old father Duncan held his daughter extremely anxiously. Fortunately, the vaccine took effect very quickly, and the girl's white eyes quickly returned to their original color. It's just that his consciousness is still not clear, so he may need to rest for a while. Very good, everyone is happy. I like this kind of family-friendly plot when watching movies. Leon took a few more glances, and after confirming that the little girl was getting better, he turned and walked towards the underground passage. Now there is a new mission. Officer Marvin, one of you will stay to protect the survivors and guard the police station. The other two went down with us to make new vaccines at the institute. After he finished speaking, he disappeared into the passage very neatly. Let's go, we have to race against time. Director Bard and Jarvis followed Leon, and they walked into the underground passage. The remaining people looked at each other. Marvin gave the order. Old Fatty, you stay, Elliot, let's go, the survivors can rest here. It's up to you, Marvin. The fat police officer obeyed the order. Well, is he really the savior? Dad Kendo hesitated and interjected at this time, I haven't had time to thank him yet. It's not too late to thank him when he comes back. Take your recovered daughter to say thank you. Marvin helped him put his daughter on the stretcher. But, you guys broke into Umbrella's laboratory, is it really okay? Duncan had doubts. Constable Elliot said, Mr. Leon is so strong that nothing could happen to him. But we're not sure whether he's the savior or not. That's incredible. But we believe him. The fat police officer interjected. Marvin walked out of the hospital partition at this time. Let's go, Elliot, let's follow. Two police officers, one black and one white, drew their pistols and followed them into the underground passage. King Ada watched silently from the side. After the two police officers disappeared, he suddenly said, It seems that you got along well before. No, I was really shocked by the incredible mecha and freezing breath when I arrived. Ha. The fat police officer sat on the sofa. But you don't seem to care about being left alone. King Ada glanced at the underground passage. The police station also needs people to guard it. The fat man frowned. It sounds like you have different opinions, madam. Ada walked to the passage gracefully and slowly. No objection, I just have to say goodbye to you for the time being. She waved her hand, held the passage, lowered her head and ducked in, quickly disappearing from everyone's sight. Hey, you can't go, she ran in, let's chase her. Dad Kendo's eyes widened with anger. But the fat police officer next to him acted as if nothing had happened. Hey, fatty, aren't you in a hurry? Duncan stopped halfway through. The fat man shrugged. Whether she wants to cause trouble or conduct an investigation, it is impossible to influence Mr. Leon, just let her go. Just kidding, will an ordinary federal agent affect Superman who can easily pull the Statue of Liberty out of the ground? The other side. The four of them walked into the elevator in the underground room. This elevator leads deeper underground. However, as soon as the armor entered the elevator, the circuit sounded an alarm, indicating that it was overweight. Jarvis, you are too heavy, you have to fly. Leon complained. Master, your armor is too heavy. Jarvis controlled the armor to fly in the air, preparing to lower its height as the elevator descended. That's a good rebuttal. I won't let you drive my armor next time. Leon pressed the down button again. The elevator's sliding doors began to close. However, at the last moment, a red figure slid on the ground and squeezed into the elevator, stopping in front of Leon. Wow, Black. Leon looked away silently. Ada stood up and straightened the hem of her skirt. Those are safety pants, gentlemen. Because I am a gentleman, I am so generous in reminding the lady that you are out of stock. Leon said. That really makes me very grateful, this gentleman, Mr. Leon. Ada squeezed in front of Leon. This elevator is a relatively spacious multi-person elevator. But Ada squeezed in front of Leon and stretched out her neck seductively. The distance between the two became so close that they could hear each other's breath. Leon is very familiar with this routine. Natasha would come in like this from time to time when we were having heart-to-heart talks at night. He can guarantee it. If he were to attack with lust at this moment, King Ada would immediately back away and say with a sultry but contemptuous look that this was not very gentlemanly. At this time, if it were an ordinary person, her defenses would be broken immediately by her, and the fish would bite the hook. To put it in literary terms, it is like a little deer breaking into the heart without any warning. Playing hard to get is the basic skill of these female agents. But facing the temptation of King Ada at this time, Leon can completely calm down. After all, let alone safety pants. He even personally operated Ada's bunny girl costume in his previous life. You don't want to offer more benefits, but you still want to seduce him into Leon. Does he seem like the kind of person who can't stand the test? You're welcome. I'm more curious about why Ms. Ada chased you in. I have to remind you that it's dangerous down there. Leon turned slightly sideways, away from King Ada. A little surprise flashed in King Ada's eyes. Leon's actions really made her believe that the other party was a gentleman. This is my job. If there is danger, dealing with it is also part of the job. Ada Wong pulled out the pistol from his tactical vest. Besides, Dr. Batter wants to go down with you. Aren't you worried about something happening to him? Facing Ada's temptation, Director Bard, who had been silent, explained, I'm fine, Mr. Leon will protect me. Ever since he followed Leon, Bud's sense of security has been overwhelming. This kind of sense of security, let alone after the outbreak of the biochemical crisis. Even before the crisis broke out, he has never experienced it. There were a few times when Bud kept thinking about how he could stay with Leon and do things for him. Compared to Umbrella, someone like Leon is the best boss. So that's it. It seems that Mr. Leon is very strong. King Ada asked. She was trying to get information, but it seemed too straightforward. Fortunately, you will see. Leon did not answer directly. Talk about it. King Ada is also one of the protagonists of the Resident Evil series of games. She is a freelance agent who serves the HCF organization on a daily basis, and occasionally works for a force called the Family. Compared to Natasha, Ada Wong can be said to be much freer and more unrestrained. Of course, while being free, she was also less tempered by countless life and death crises than Natasha. King Ada, who is now 23 or 4 years old, is many times more immature than Natasha of the same age. Ding! At this time, the elevator also reached the bottom. The sliding door opened, and 5 people walked out one after another. Below the elevator is a long set of stairs. Leon starts and goes all the way down. When he encounters a locked door, he opens it. When he encounters a zombie blocking his way, he freezes. Soon the group walked into the sewer underground of the police station. Follow the sewer and you'll find the Umbrella Research Institute. Leon flew directly up. He had no intention of walking through sewage. Even the olfactory nerves were suppressed by him, otherwise the smell here would make him choke. Fly, it's flying. Marvin and others were startled at first, and then they kept looking at Leon in surprise. But while they were surprised, it did not affect the efficiency of their actions. Several people followed Leon and jumped down the steps one after another. The sewage from the sewer instantly reached their thighs. In the end, only King Ada was left standing on the steps. She looked at the turbid sewage flowing under her feet, and then at the person above her head, and her lips trembled. Leon looked at her jokingly, waiting for her reaction. Finally, King Ada sighed and jumped into the sewage. Follow me and stay vigilant. Leon greeted and floated forward, slowly. To be honest, it's a bit weird to fly in his current casual outfit. It feels like a high school student working hard to go to school and taking time off to save the world. The sewers are already very close to Umbrella's laboratory. Along the way, there were turbid sewage and moss-covered cave walls. Strange mutated creatures kept jumping out and attacking everyone. Some are half-body like giants looking at dead corpses, and the other half are like infected people who have turned into giant leeches. Some are sewer insects that are 1 meter long, and there are huge mutant crocodiles that are 1 to 20 meters long. God knows how Umbrella turned an ordinary sewer into a place richer in biodiversity than the sea in Japan. Not only are these monsters highly dangerous, they are also numerous. Normally, even if a small group of special soldiers arrives, there is a risk of being annihilated. But Leon flew ahead of everyone. When encountering monsters, beat them, and when encountering a wall, destroy the wall. No monster can block his punch, and no wall can stop him for 1 more second. The group had an unimpeded journey. It's almost like hiking here, except the environment is a bit overwhelming. Even King Ada, who had been extremely vigilant, only had time to shoot and kill a zombie fish that was pretending to be dead. Other than that, she couldn't grab any monsters. Our Mr. Leon really makes people feel safe. I admit that he is an absolute gentleman. King Ada said words of praise, but wrung out the hem of her skirt with some disgust. At this time, everyone came to a sewage treatment tank platform. There are all water buildings here, and large sewage treatment machines are constantly running and rumbling. They finally got rid of the sewage soaking temporarily. Marvin used a flashlight to illuminate the surroundings, and stinking corpses could be seen in some corners. Look at these people. Some are wearing lab coats and some are wearing combat uniforms. Umbrella really has a huge scientific research base here. Elliot also gritted his teeth. This city is under their control. These worms deserve to die. Isn't it the characteristic of this country that capital controls power? King Ada followed Leon casually. Are you right, gentlemen? Leon didn't answer, took a few steps, and suddenly said, back off. What? King Ada was stunned. Before she could react, Leon in front of her grabbed her arm and pulled her to her side. The next second, there was a sound of cracking in the air behind her. Looking back, a giant mutant insect passed by her previous position with its mouthparts wide open. The insect failed in its sneak attack and tried to escape, but was hit by Leon's whip leg and hit the wall, exploding into insect juice. Quote. King Ada was a little scared. Thank you. She leaned half against Leon, supported his arm and backed away, only to find that the arm had a marble-like touch. I couldn't help but sigh. You have a good figure. Leon raised his eyebrows. I think so too, but you owe me once. Girls won't like stinky men. King Ada raised her lips. That's impossible to say. Leon continued to walk forward. Going all the way along the sewage treatment area is the control room. Through the glass, everyone can see a large platform at the other end of the control room. An armored cable car is parked on the platform. We're here, Leon said. You can get to the institute by taking the cable car. Thank God, it's finally here. Director Batter's physical strength was at its worst, and he was extremely tired. He took the initiative to open the door, but the iron door of the control room was locked tightly. It's locked, Bud said. So everyone looked at Leon. Let me do it, I can pick the lock. Please, Leon, you can't do it every time. King Ada stepped forward and took out the lock-picking tool. However, before she could finish her words, Leon had already pushed the iron door and the surrounding walls to the ground with one palm. The two looked at each other. Leon spread his hands innocently. Maybe next time you can tell me in advance that you can unlock the door. Pretend I didn't say it. King Ada put away the props. Let's go and take the cable car. Leon turned his head, but then looked at the hidden corner of the control room. Madam, if you plan on taking a ride with us, you can come out now. Everyone was shocked. There was actually someone else here. Suddenly all the guns were raised neatly, aiming in the direction Leon was looking. There a thin middle-aged woman with sunken eyes came out. She was wearing a white research uniform and pointed her pistol at everyone. Police, you shouldn't be here. There are only infected people left in the institute. You'd better leave now. She stared at everyone and warned. Yanni Burkin. At this time, King Ada stepped forward to confront her with guns in both hands. You and your husband are the creators of the virus and the culprits of this disaster. There's no need to be hypocritical. She warned sternly. Hand over the G-virus now. At the same time, Ada did not forget to explain to Leon, the purpose of my coming here is to eliminate Umbrella. The G-virus is far more dangerous than the T-virus, and we must not leave it in the hands of this woman. Everyone looked at the two people back and forth, feeling that the situation was a bit complicated. Director Batter had never even heard of the G-virus. After Arnie Burkin heard the word G-virus, her eyes instantly changed and became sinister. I see, you are also here for the G-virus. She smiled contemptuously. Don't even think about it. Under the cover of the words, she took the opportunity to throw a grenade, and then raised her gun to shoot at Ada. Not good, dangerous. The two police officers, Marvin and Marvin, pounced on Leon immediately, trying to knock him down and block the explosion for him. However, Leon ducked away, grabbed the grenade with his left hand, and pulled Ada King with his right hand. The bullet grazed Ada's arm. A few seconds later, there was a muffled sound. Leon spread his left hand and shook off a few wisps of black ash and debris. The palm of his hand was still clean and fresh. This. Everyone was stunned. They covered the thunder with their palms and there were no injuries at all. Who is this person? On the other side, Yanni Burkin, who was about to exit the monitoring room, was also stunned. She felt that even her husband, who had turned into a monster, might not be able to do such a thing. Leon glanced at the stunned Yanni, took a few steps forward, grabbed her, and threw her to Marvin. Control her, let's go to the research institute. Several people looked at each other and followed Leon onto the platform. King Ada hesitated, wanting to say something, but remembering Leon's action of extinguishing the grenade just now, he didn't want to say anything. On the platform, walk to the cable car. Everyone discovered that the operation of the cable car requires the use of staff identity bracelets. After coming back to her senses, Arnie Burkin smiled proudly. It's impossible for me to give you permission bracelets, so just give up. Mr. Leon. So Marvin and the others looked at Leon habitually. It looked like he was waiting for him to show off his skills and take down the thick armored door with one punch. King Ada was anxious at first. Wait. And Leon, calm down first. Opening the cable car violently will cause a malfunction. I think we can interrogate this woman first. She pointed at Yanni. She must have an authorization bracelet on her. Along the way, I was shocked again and again and challenged my worldview again and again. Now the cold temperament on King Ada's face has collapsed. Before today, she would never have imagined that she would use a tentative tone to communicate with others. Yet even she has made such a huge sacrifice. Leon just looked at her strangely. What did you say? Do you think I can only think with my muscles? Leon frowned dissatisfiedly. He snapped his fingers. Jarvis. I'm here, master. The steel armor who had always had no sense of presence stood up. Turn on this cable car and get it running. Yes. Several data cables were protruded from the steel armor and connected to the cable car's external screen. After a few seconds, the screen flashed and the cable car's armored door opened with a hiss. Look, I still have artificial intelligence. Leon winked at King Ada and walked into the cable car first. Everyone followed and filed in, praising him as Mr. Leon. Quote. King Ada stayed for a few seconds, then suddenly tilted his head and laughed, haha, just like a fool. I don't know if I'm talking about Leon or myself. She tapped her forehead and followed helplessly into the cable car. Under the control of Jarvis, the tram began to run slowly, and its speed gradually increased. There should be a lot of zombies and mutated creatures in the institute. Leon stood among a few people and said, so it's still the same, I'm in front, you follow. When the underground base is cleared, you can help sort out the research materials and equipment. As for how to improve the vaccine, I already have preliminary ideas, and it is no surprise that the results will be available before tomorrow morning. Several people, Lee Bud, expressed admiration, Marvin and Elliot were full of excitement, and Ada clapped her hands but her eyes twinkled slightly. Oh, you're such a bragging brat, you're only 17 or 18 years old, let's go to college first. Only Yanni muttered disdainfully. The cable car will arrive soon. Everyone exclaimed as soon as they got off the platform. I don't even know how much money and thought Umbrella spent here. This is simply another world. Officers Marvin and Elliot sighed. At the first glance, the Underground Research Institute gave them a very deep impression. The Research Institute is completely different from the sewers in front of it. The sewers are full of rough pipes and the stench rises to the sky. But here, the outermost edge of Umbrella's Research Institute is high-strength titanium metal walls. The unique texture of metal flows throughout the entrance, and the sunlight-like indicator light shines into the deepest part. Marvin and the others felt like they had entered the future world. In their eyes, even Leon seemed to have become much softer when faced with this sci-fi-like base. He no longer uses his fists to open blocked doors like before. Instead, let the iron guy do the data cracking. Of course, the actual situation is that there is no electronic door in the sewer for Jarvis to crack, and the fastest way is for Leon to wave his fist. There was another click, and Jarvis easily invaded the base that required researcher permission to enter. A heavy gate with 3 floors outside the base slowly rose. The 5 people present were automatically given advanced permissions. Every time they come to a door, an intelligence system will automatically open the door. Compared to the outside, there are almost only humanoid zombies in the Research Institute. Leon directly sent Jarvis to clean up, while a few of his own people waited in place. The few people who stopped temporarily began to explore and search the surrounding rooms. As a result, we actually found the diaries of many researchers. The diaries of these people almost all recorded the general process of the outbreak of the biochemical crisis. From the beginning, when someone was accidentally infected during the experiment, to when that person turned into a zombie and was dealt with by security forces. Then everyone became in danger, the virus leaked, and creatures like mice began to bring the virus to the ground. I didn't expect it to be like this at first, oh my god. Director Bard rubbed the corners of his eyes. I thought only my team was doing this research. Marvin comforted him. Dr. Bud, you were just forced by people with bad intentions. What we have to do now is to save everything. The two of them were chatting happily, and Ada also approached Arnie Burkin on the other side. Leon was checking past records on the computer in the security room. Suddenly, the mobile phone communication in his bag opened, and Jarvis's voice came out. Master, the mutated creatures inside the base have been cleared away. But I found a tyrant-like creature. It's chasing a little girl hiding in the corner. Do you want me to rescue her? Little girl, is it Shirley Burkin? Leon picked up the phone. Shirley Burkin was the daughter of Arnie and William. In the game, William was forced to be injected with the G virus and turned into a monster. His brain was affected and he was filled with the desire to reproduce the virus. However, this virus can only be stably transmitted between parents. Non-parental transmission can lead to rapid death of the infected person. Therefore, William, who becomes a monster in the game, has been chasing his daughter Shirley throughout the game. Shirley was later rescued by Leon S. Kennedy and Claire in the game. In the end, she even became one of the heroines of the 6th generation of the game. Leon thought for a while. You take Shirley to lure that monster over and let me deal with it. The Super Mark I's firepower was enough to kill William. However, people infected with the G virus can continue to mutate and regenerate just like the trackers they fought before. If Jarvis is really allowed to deal with William, then the research institute will probably be destroyed as well. Wait for Jarvis to give a positive answer. Leon immediately took everyone back to the platform, waiting for Jarvis to return from attracting monsters. The area here on the platform is spacious and suitable for fighting. Facing a few people with confused faces, Leon stood at the front. A strong enemy is coming, and we are here to fight against it. A few minutes later, the steel armor held a little blonde girl in its arms, spitting out long tail flames, and stopped suddenly above the crowd. Shirley, Yanni suddenly shouted to the little girl, why are you here? Mommy. The little girl was a little happy, but not too excited. It was this Iron Man who saved me. Jarvis landed and let go of his hand, and the little girl immediately pounced on Yanni. Ada, who had been restraining Yanni, was also a little dazed. At the age of 23, she still had little experience. Seeing that her enemy was the mother of a little girl, her strength relaxed a little. So much so that Yanni broke free from the restraints and held Shirley in her arms. Shirley, I'm sorry, Mom hasn't been to see you these days. Yanni rubbed Shirley's head. Shirley said timidly, Mommy, Dad has become so scary, he wants to catch me. Yanni was stunned for a moment and looked at her daughter intently, her eyes shaking as if she had thought of something. He didn't hurt you or give you anything to eat, right? No, Dad hasn't caught me yet. Shirley shook her head. Yanni breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this, but her eyes started to struggle, and the struggle in her heart was fierce. Sorry, Shirley, I have to do this. Yanni suddenly said something incomprehensible. She hugged Shirley hard, her expression became decisive, as if she had made some determination. Then she turned back at lightning speed, grabbed the gun in Ada's hand, turned it around, and actually wanted to shoot Shirley. However, Ada reacted quickly and directly twisted Yanni's arm and pressed her to the ground. What are you doing? That's your daughter. Her voice was cold. Just because she is my and William's daughter, I can't let her live. Yanni struggled but was determined. Except for Leon, everyone present felt unbelievable. What kind of mother does this have to be to say such cruel words in a ruthless tone? Little Shirley fell to the ground, kicking her calves on the ground and retreating, completely at a loss. Mommy. Yanni noticed the strange looks from everyone and retorted with a fierce face, you don't understand anything. You don't understand what kind of monster it is. We must not let the G virus spread, otherwise the world will be over. If Shirley stays here, William will infect her and turn her into a monster. Even if she is sent out, William will also chase her out. So, in order to prevent the G-virus from spreading, I can't let Shirley stay. And you'd better not think about the G-virus, it's the key to destroying the world. Marvin stepped forward with an unkind expression. No matter what you say, it's not the reason for you to kill your daughter. Excuse me, William Burkin. Is that the monster in front of you? Leon suddenly spoke. He twisted his neck. Mrs. Burkin, have you ever considered the possibility that killing your husband can also prevent him from continuing to spread the virus? What did you say? Arnie Burkin looked like she was looking at a fool. You know nothing about his power. Really? Leon took the initiative to greet William Burkin, who had just ran out of the research institute. William Burkin staggered out of the institute's facility door. His figure became clear under the lighting. The right half of the body becomes huge, and huge eyes grow on the arm. Various scarlet muscle lines tore apart the shackles of the skin and knitted together. The left half was transformed into a normal zombie, and its withered white eyes locked onto little Shirley in the crowd. Roar! It roared, and its body seemed to be a bit bigger, like a beast that had been hungry for several days and finally found food. It lowered its head and charged, its ferocious right hand opened in the air, trying to clear away everything that stood in its way. Leon, who was standing at the front, rushed forward without giving in. It's just that his tall body actually looks a bit smaller under the opponent's huge arms. Everyone couldn't help but feel a little worried. They know how good Leon is. But according to Yanni, this monster is even more powerful, as if it is unstoppable. Under tension, Ada and Marvin even raised their pistols and started taking aim, intending to cover Leon's retreat. The confrontation between the two sides lasted only a moment. The monster William Burkin transformed into was fast. But Leon is faster. He rushed forward, twisted around at a speed that could not be caught by the naked eye, and threw an uppercut. So there was no doubt that William Burkin's head exploded like a sun-baked watermelon. In the dull eyes of everyone, Leon silently closed his fist and turned around, his body still spotless. He twisted his wrist, and the headless corpse collapsed behind him. How powerful do you think it is? He looked at Yanni. Yanni's face trembled, not wanting to believe what she saw. She said with a trembling voice, You will only promote his own mutation. He will soon become stronger. You'd better. Before she could finish her words, Leon turned around again and released heat rays at William's body. In just a few seconds, there were no ashes on the ground. There was only a handful of carbon ash. Most of them were dispersed by Leon's gentle blow. The monster in the game that can transform into the 4th or even 5th level has just completed its curtain call. What now? Leon turned and asked. Yanni was completely silent. In fact, she had been struggling before whether to kill her mutated husband William, but she had never been able to make the decision. It's fine now, she doesn't have to make a choice anymore, that hateful young man ruined everything. Yanni stared blankly at the carbon ash at Leon's feet. She stood up like a zombie. Ada frowned and did not immediately restrain her again. Everyone watched as Yanni walked up to the pile of charcoal ash, gently picked it up, and put it close to her face. Silent tears flowed down without knowing when. Mommy. Little Shirley ran up timidly, but just hugged Leon's thigh and did not dare to step forward. Yanni ignored Shirley. She stood up quietly and walked quietly into the base. No one spoke at this time. Half a minute later, a gunshot was heard in the institute. Mommy. Shirley's eyes turned red, but she hugged Leon's thigh even tighter. It was obvious that Mr. and Mrs. Burkin cared little for their family. They don't have that deep a relationship with Shirley. Shirley was first chased by the monster that William turned into, and was almost shot by Yanni on the grounds of justice. She has lost all support in this world at this time. Whether material or spiritual, everything is lost. But she remembered that the Iron Man said that the big brother in front of her was the one who ordered her rescue. She could only hold on to Leon now, like grabbing a life-saving straw. Leon pursed his lips and touched Shirley's little head, but did not comfort her. With such a complicated family tragedy, any comfort from outsiders is in vain. More importantly, we still have to let the little girl come out on her own. Let's go in. It's been emptied inside. We need to make a new vaccine as soon as possible. He involved Shirley in everyone's work. Marvin, Elliot, you and Jarvis are going to collect resources in the Institute. You need all kinds of resources. King Ada, you can do what you want to do. It's up to you to steal the G-Virus or do other things. Bud, come with me and help me develop a vaccine. Shirley, if you can you come and help everyone? Pass them a cup of coffee or something. By the way, one more thing, Jarvis, terminate and destroy the self-destruct program of this institute. Don't get halfway through your research and the base will be blown up. Everyone agreed and then dispersed. Even Shirley wiped her eyes, glanced at the room that Yanni had entered before, bit her lip, and ran to the kitchen to make coffee. But King Ada stopped Leon. Did you know that my identity was fake? When did it happen? When I first saw you. Oh, then why did you ask me to follow you all the way? I heard that you are a freelance agent and work for many forces at the same time. That's right. Are you interested in working with me in the future, saving the world or something like that? You want to recruit me? Ha, sounds very interesting. I will consider it carefully, Leon. Before leaving, King Ada tried to lift Leon's chin with his fingers. After being dodged, he winked and gave a cool smile. Nice to meet you, and thank you. She turned around, waved and walked into the inner passage. As expected of Aunt Wong, she loves to pretend to be mysterious even in her 20s. Leon muttered, retracted his gaze, grabbed Bud, and flew to the research room. On the other side, Hongshi subway station. Jill Valentine said goodbye to others in front of the subway that was about to depart. Jill, are you sure you want to go find Brother Stark? The Raccoon City Police Department is not close to here. Carlos suggested. I think it would be better for you to leave the city with the others. He said he would save the city, and I believe him, Carlos. I have to go, as long as I can help a little bit. Gil checked the ammunition. Carlos sighed helplessly. I really don't know where your trust comes from. Do you still have doubts about him after seeing him take action? Gil picked up a rifle and asked. I have to admit, he does look like a savior. Well, when my mission is over, I will go find you too. Carlos scratched his head. Jill put the fingers of her right hand together and waved in the air, then I'll see you at the police station. After saying that, she turned around and ran into the burning street. 2 hours later, the antiviral serum and vaccine corresponding to the T-virus, airborne version, done. Leon looked at the 2 test tubes of red potion in his hand and snapped his fingers. He casually handed the test tube to Bud. Take it for experiments on mice, especially to see if the vaccine can work through the air. In order to improve the scope of the vaccine, he directly modified the way the T-virus spreads. In the past, the T-virus could only be transmitted through liquids and blood. Now after his modification, the virus can be spread through direct exposure to the air. In the movie version of Resident Evil, the original solution of the virus that infected the world was even less effective than the new T-virus he created. The current new T-virus and the C-virus that are catching up to the future in terms of transmission efficiency have the initial possibility of annihilation. Fortunately, while Leon opened Pandora's box, he also developed an air-diffused version of the vaccine and locked it. Another half-hour passed. Mr. Leon, the vaccine and serum worked on all the mice. Jarvis predicted that the difference in their effectiveness in humans would not exceed 0.3%. Quote, what's the scope of the vaccine? As you might expect, after diffusing in the air, it will be effective for less than half an hour within a range of 30 meters. Very good. Let Marvin and the others start the production workshop and start mass production of the new T-virus vaccine and serum. Leon said and took another bottle of dark purple liquid. And this, the new G-virus serum, let's experiment with it too. Bud's hands were shaking a little, and he looked at Leon with a look of shock. Have you even developed the airborne version of the G-virus? That's not true. The G-virus hasn't infected a large area yet, so I don't need to study its spread version of the vaccine. Leon said, this is a powerful anti-G virus serum that can save people who have been infected for less than 20 hours. Bud immediately breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly took the vaccine. Okay, I'll go experiment now. At this time, Leon picked up the coffee that Shirley had brewed and took a sip. The next step is to conduct my own research. 6.5 hours later, Leon rubbed his forehead and returned to the lobby of the east area of the institute. Marvin and others immediately surrounded him. It was already 7 o'clock in the morning on September 29th. "Brother Leon, do you need to take a break?" little Shirley asked, holding a box. In that box were the ashes of Anne Burkin, who had been cremated with everyone's help a few hours ago. It also contains some of William Burkin's charcoal dust. "No, I'm just a little upset," Leon waved his hand. In the past 5 hours, he combined the information of the ancestor virus with the T virus and G virus to develop a new type of virus. When the super brain's computing power is fully activated, although he did not conduct research for a long time, his results were better than those of William and others combined for decades. The prototype of S-type virus. This is the name he gave the new virus. This virus is the most widely transmissible and deadly. It can spread in the air, is extremely vital, and will not lose activity within 6 hours after exposure. Once infected, he initially predicted that the chance of the patient turning into a zombie would be over 90%. And it will turn into a super zombie that is extremely powerful and difficult to kill. But just survive. The infected person can retain their sanity intact, gain absolute physical strengthening, and have the ability to regenerate. However, in terms of airborne transmission efficiency, it is still much worse than ordinary pneumonia infectious diseases. The breath, or droplets, of an infected person does not directly cause the spread of the virus. Only when the infected person's body fluids and blood are exposed and a large amount of virus is enriched, will it spread under the action of transpiration. But even there are certain limitations. As long as the effects of this virus are known to Spencer, Wesker and others, they will definitely shout that this is the ladder of human evolution and immediately start promoting the plan of global evolution. Even when the virus was successfully synthesized, Leon felt the excitement coming from the consciousness of the world. But it's a pity that he doesn't need such a virus. What he needs is a medicine that is 100% successful and can enhance the human body's regeneration ability. After all, this is used to heal Tony's body. It would be terrible if Tony turns into a zombie. Taking into account the problem of excessive mutation probability. Maybe after solving the crisis in Raccoon City, he will have to go to Europe. It is believed that after combining the characteristics of Plaka parasite and E-mold, the prototype of the S virus can evolve more perfectly. But before that, he may have to go back to Marvel. You have to at least look at the difference in time flow between the two worlds. Last time, Leon took advantage of the opportunity. He also took out a drop of his own blood and tried to infect Kryptonian blood with the prototype of the S virus. Since awakening his ability, his blood, which was no different from that of ordinary people, has added Kryptonian factors. In other words, it turned into the bloodline of Kryptonians and Earthlings merging with each other. So there is nothing wrong with calling his blood Kryptonian blood. However, the experimental results were very bad. When the two come into contact in the container, the Kryptonian blood swallowed up the prototype of the S virus in an instant. And it also has a will to reproduce crazily. Just a few breaths. The Kryptonian blood that swallowed the prototype of the S-type virus seemed to be alive, and began to corrode the container, trying to escape into the air. If it were really allowed to escape, the S virus prototype would be airborne, coupled with the super activity of Kryptonian blood. Leon didn't dare to think about what would happen in the end. Anyway, at that second, the consciousness of the world seemed to be going crazy and kept sending out emotions of fear and despair to him. He can only destroy it instantly with a heat ray. In the end, the glass container turned into ashes on the test bench, letting Leon know he probably still has a long way to go in bloodline research. So when he walked out of the laboratory, he rubbed his forehead distractedly. "Bud, how are the production results and experimental results of the vaccine and serum?" Leon turned to ask Bud. He conveniently held the syringe containing the prototype of the Golden S virus in his hand, handed it to Jarvis, and asked him to put it away. All other traces of the prototype of the S virus in the laboratory were destroyed by him. Even after leaving the laboratory, he deliberately destroyed the entire room to ensure that no one would break in later. The only S virus stock solution now is the one in his hand. The experiment with the G virus serum went very smoothly. At least currently, organisms that have been infected within 5 hours can be cured after being injected with the serum. Director Batter took the report, the new T-virus vaccine and serum have been produced in sufficient quantities to cover the entire Raccoon City. And the antiviral bombs modified with the new serum were also produced with the help of Mr. Jarvis, and the number exceeded 500. Leon nodded. Enough. Now we can get started and roll out the vaccine across the city. I believe that in a few hours, Raccoon City will be back to its original appearance. Marvin and Elliot stood up straight at this moment. It seemed like they even wanted to give a standard hand-raising salute. We're going to carry the bomb right now, Mr. Leone. Marvin saluted as expected, and left with Elliot eagerly. Remember to bring Jarvis with you. Leon asked Jarvis to control the armor to help. Then he looked at King Ada, who was leaning against the wall. I thought you had already left and weren't in a hurry to hand over the G-virus to your boss. After not seeing each other for a few hours, Ada seemed to have taken a bath in the institute and even changed a set of clothes. At this time, she was wearing a red jacket and black slim-fitting pants, looking very stylish. That was already the last boss. Ada put on a pair of sunglasses. Now I find that I have found a better boss. She walked toward Leon with crossed steps, and there was a graceful arc between her waist and hips. Do you want to establish a long-term employment relationship with me, Boss Leon? Ada raised her chin slightly. The past 9 hours, she finally saw the excellence of the big boy in front of her. Not only does he have unimaginable power, but he also has an astonishing brain, and most importantly, he has a righteous heart. Such people are like the dazzling sun wherever they go. Ada must admit that she had a vague idea in her heart of getting closer to this sun, and it would be best to bathe in the sunshine every day. In layman's terms, she had a strong curiosity about this man. Ada decided to stay with Leon for the time being and observe the savior found by the consciousness of this world. Is this considered an application? Leon raised his eyebrows in surprise. He also thought that a free agent like Ada would not be willing to be subordinate to others. If you are applying for a job, do you think you are qualified? Ada said. I barely passed. Congratulations on being admitted. Remember to call me boss from now on. You can raise your salary yourself. Leon smiled happily. Only if I earn some legal income in this world. Does that mean I'm a free employee now? Ada raised her lips. Or do you want to pay with something else? Sorry, our company's interns just don't get paid. Leon would not take the bait. He had long been hooked by Natasha. Come on, Shirley, I'll carry you on my back. It's almost time for us to leave this place. Leon turned around and picked up Shirley. Ada behind him was not angry, but the expression on her face became more meaningful, and she followed slowly. Half an hour later, everyone got ready and took the cable car back again. After returning to the sewer, it was another difficult trek. Only this time, Leon had a Shirley on his back, an Ada King hanging around his neck, and a pile of wooden boxes containing bombs in his hands. Not only him, but Marvin and others also had wooden boxes in their arms. When he returned to the police station, the fat police officer thought that the group of people had returned from purchasing goods. At some point, there were more than a dozen survivors in the police station. The survivors were extremely excited after hearing that the boxes were full of antiviral bombs and vaccines. At this time, the old father Kendo also came to Leon with his daughter Emma, bowed and thanked him, and expressed his endless gratitude. Kendo, it's boring to say thank you too much. Just do more of your work when the bomb is dropped later. Leon touched little Emma's head casually. Marvin said you are the best gunsmith here. Remember to protect yourself and your daughter. Well, what about me? Shirley, who had been standing behind Leon, now grabbed the corner of his clothes. The girl held the urn, her shoulders huddled together, looking forward to it. Shirley's look made Leon slightly dazed. He thought of himself when he was 1 year old and had just awakened his memory. At that time, he was as uneasy as little Shirley. It's just that he still has Tony, but little Shirley has nothing. There was no one present that Shirley knew before today, they were all strangers. The world was not friendly to her at all. But she is brave, at least she dares to find support. Leon bent down and touched Shirley's head again. Okay, let me protect Shirley. Shirley suddenly smiled happily, hugging the urn and wiping away her tears while laughing. Leon! A shout came from the door of the police station. Jill Valentine, still wearing a blue denim vest, opened the door and walked in. Behind her were Brad and Carlos. Jill. Leon didn't expect to see Jill here. Thank you, Leon. Before he could say a word, Jill ran over and gave Leon a deep hug. Ada, who was opening a wooden box not far away and preparing to load a bomb, heard the voice and came over. She looked at the two people hugging each other, her expression unchanged, but her eyelids were slightly depressed. Jill hugged her for a few seconds before letting go. I really didn't expect you to actually save Brad. He was infected just to cover me before. I don't know what to say, Leon, thank you very much. Leon has heard too many thanks today. Brad, who had recovered from the other side, also came over and introduced himself after thanking him profusely. Leon could only wave his hands and say it was all trivial matters. The big thing was to save the citizens of Raccoon City who were in dire straits. He felt that he had to give these people something to do quickly. Otherwise, the police department will almost become a cult of praise. The kind that only praises him. Jill, why are you here? He first introduced the topic. I'm here to find you. You want to save Raccoon City, and I hope I can help. Jill said, but when I first arrived, there were only Lao Shin and Brad here, so I went out to look for other survivors. Seeing Leon again, she seemed to have a lot to say. Before the words came out of my mouth, my eyes were already talking. But then Ada came over and said, Boss, when will we set off? Huh, boss. Gil was stunned for a moment. Aren't you from another world? This person is also from your world. Of course not. I am Ada Wong, a former federal agent, now serving boss. Ada Wong is using a fake identity again. She stood next to Leon very naturally, as if she was a very close party, which made Jill's eyes freeze slightly. Speaking of which, I actually have many names, and King Ada is just one of them. She said suddenly. Then what's your original name? Leon was very interested in this topic. In the previous game, Ada was very mysterious, and no one knew her specific background. My previous name is no longer important. When I met you, boss, I was called Ada. I will also be called Ada from now on. King Ada's words were astonishing, making everyone around him silent at the same time. All kinds of eyes focused on her. Marvin and others were stunned, Bud was thoughtful, Shirley was confused, and Jill was stunned. At this moment, Jarvis's low-pitched reminder came to Leon's ears. Master, Mr. Stark asked me to remind you when encountering such a situation, to be careful of strangers, deception. Jarvis knew that Leon had super hearing, so he stood in the distance and spoke with the high-frequency sound emitted by the armor. Leon couldn't help but slap him on the face. This Tony is still meddling in other people's business even though he is a world away. Tony. Ada's indifferent expression froze, not understanding why another person's name suddenly appeared. Okay, Ada, I'm touched, really. Leon explained immediately. However, Ada's eyes were subtle, and her mood probably couldn't return to before. That Tony must be very important to you. Or does this Miss Ada look like Tony? Jill couldn't help laughing at the side, and she didn't even hide it. After hearing this, Ada turned around and looked at Jill, both of them having inexplicable meanings in their eyes. Ahem, okay, why are you standing there? Hurry up and act, don't just sit here and watch. It was the old policeman Marvin who knew the atmosphere, stood up and gave instructions loudly. The lively scene soon resumed in the hall. More than 10 minutes later, everyone got armed, and a team of 3 people left the police station and began to go to various neighborhoods in Raccoon City to release vaccines. Leon did not go with these people. In order to increase efficiency, he is responsible for freezing the outer layer of the entire city with his freezing breath. Jarvis and others are responsible for eliminating zombies and spreading vaccines. What they have to do is very simple, that is, throw out vaccines when they encounter people, and throw out antiviral bombs when they encounter zombies. The antiviral bomb is a scattering bomb that shoots out numerous fine needles containing serum after the explosion. These fine needles are inserted into the zombie body and the serum is also injected into it. It won't take long for the virus in the zombie to be inactivated, and the zombie itself will die accordingly. The mechanism of action of vaccines is even simpler. The vaccine after the container is broken will naturally evaporate and spread to the nearby area, allowing everyone who comes into contact to naturally develop antibodies. Leon was flying in the air from the beginning. Carrying Shirley on his back, he floated on the edge of the city and flew along the outer buildings. He exhaled freezing breath as he flew. Soon the entire city's surface turned into a world of frost. All zombies on the streets are frozen. Leon lowered the temperature this time. The zombies, like ice statues, all died one after another in the process of rapid freezing, because the cells in their body were pierced by the ice formed in the body. As for the remaining zombies in the house, I will leave it to everyone to clean up slowly. With the new vaccine and serum, everything will go smoothly. But the efficiency of ordinary people's actions is still too low. 2 hours later, the people responsible for cleaning up the city returned to the police station. This time, Leon has even returned to the institute once to disinfect and sterilize his entire body. But when everyone gathered in the police station lobby again, everyone's face was filled with excitement and joy. The Raccoon City rescue plan has successfully come to an end and has been successfully completed. It's a pity that World Consciousness did not send more gifts at this time. It seems that the other party doesn't care about the redemption of a little Raccoon City. Leon, you saved this city. Marvin and Jill took everyone to thank Leon. There were thousands of people in the police station at this time, many of whom were survivors gathered on the road. They learned what had happened. At this time, thousands of people chanted Leon's name at the same time, and the momentum seemed to break through the dome of the police station. Leon was not very interested in such a scene. Just like Tony's speech, he didn't make a long speech, but just used a few words like, "You are the real heroes," to deal with it. Half an hour later, Marvin, Jill and others gathered in the conference room after settling the survivors. Leon got straight to the point. "I'm going to leave temporarily and return to my world for a while." Seeing everyone's faces beginning to show anxious expressions, he pressed his hands down to indicate that he should finish speaking first. "Don't worry, I will be back soon. I am leaving now just to test the time flow rate of the two worlds and to ensure that I will not leave my own world for too long. I'll have Jarvis stay here to help you before I leave. It has collected all evidence of Umbrella's crimes and can publish them online at any time as long as you are ready. In addition, Umbrella has used this place as a testing ground, and Eagle Sauce officials may not have a positive attitude. So you'd better be prepared to evacuate in advance. I suspect that no matter which party discovers the changes here, they will destroy the city to erase the traces. Don't miss me too much, friends, I'll be back soon." Leon said goodbye in a relaxed state. But the people in front of him who had only been with him for a few hours became extremely reluctant to part with him. Many times emotions come out of nowhere. Some people may become strangers even after being together for several years. But sometimes, just one thing or a word can make one person have a crush on another person. "Are you sure you will come back?" Ada Wong looked at Leon steadily. "My salary hasn't been paid yet." Leon hugged her gently. "Is this considered salary?" It's still far away." King Ada put his hand on Leon's chest, and his fingertips slid down his perfect muscle lines. "It's almost done now, he has a good figure, big boy." Leon was speechless and snapped his fingers. "Jarvis, assist everyone in their work and cooperate with us in combat when necessary." After speaking, he touched Shirley's little head and told her to listen to Ada and Jill. He gave everyone present a hug again. Finally, he waved to everyone. "I'm leaving, see you all." The words fell. Leon closed his eyes and activated his ability to travel. There is no need to search the world when you go back. In the chaotic space, bubbles representing the Marvel world automatically emerged. Behind that bubble, there seemed to be a huge group of chaotic bubbles following. But except for the world when they came, the other bubbles were all shrouded in misty darkness. Leon knew that was the Marvel multiverse. He chose to return and pay the same energy as when he came. Next moment, Leon disappeared from everyone's eyes. Another time traveling without any spatial fluctuations. After everyone was surprised, there was silence. "To be honest, I'm starting to miss him now," Marvin joked in the dull atmosphere. He was really honest and never deceived us from beginning to end. "We are lucky for the world consciousness to find such a savior. You know, we had a new person coming to the police station yesterday. His name is also Leon, but his name is Leon S. Kennedy." Elliot also echoed. "Yes, I thought Mr. Leon was the new guy at first, ha ha ha. However, I don't know what happened to the newcomer, but he was already late all day. I hope he is still alive and safe and as good as Mr. Leone, so that everyone will be willing to applaud him. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.